Hello everyone, I'm the DreamTeller and I'm here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now get comfortable and relax. I should have known something was wrong when Sarah never went into that room. Not once in the 3 months I'd been visiting her apartment. She'd just walk past it, like it wasn't even there. When I moved in last week, I asked her about it. She shrugged and said it was just storage. But storage rooms have stuff in them. This one was empty. The first night nothing happened. The second night too. But on the third night, my phone died during a work call. Sarah was already asleep, and I didn't want to wake her up searching for my charger. I remembered seeing an outlet in that empty room earlier that day when I'd glanced in while moving boxes. The door didn't squeak when I opened it. The room was cold, maybe 10 degrees colder than the hallway. My phone's flashlight showed bare walls, no furniture, just a single outlet on the far wall. The wooden floor was dusty except for a clean circular patch in the center, about 3 feet wide. I plugged in my phone and left it on the floor. The charging icon lit up. Good enough. At 3 a.m. I woke up needing to pee. The bathroom was past that room. The hallway was dark except for a flickering light coming from under the door. My phone screen, maybe? But the rhythm was wrong. Too irregular. Then I heard it. A soft tapping from inside, like fingernails on wood, but slower. Tap. 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 I stood there in my boxers, feet frozen to the floor. The tapping stopped. A whisper leaked through the crack under the door. Not words exactly, more like the sound of speaking but muffled, like someone talking through a pillow. My throat went dry. I needed that phone for work in the morning. The whispers continued, rising and falling like waves. I grabbed the doorknob. The metal was ice cold. When I turned it, the whispering stopped instantly. I pushed the door open. My phone lay on the floor where I'd left it, screen dark. The charging light blinked steadily. The room was empty, but the clean circle in the dust was bigger now, maybe 4 feet across. I snatched my phone and yanked the charger from the wall. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I ran to the bathroom, then back to bed. Sarah was still asleep. I lay there until morning, listening. The next day at work, I couldn't focus. My neck muscles were tight from lack of sleep. During lunch, I texted Sarah, "Hey, what's the deal with that empty room? Previous tenant move out or something?" She replied an hour later, "Don't really use it. Better that way." Better that way? What the hell did that mean? I called her, but it went to voicemail. That night, Sarah worked late. I ordered pizza and ate alone on the couch, trying not to look down the hallway. Around 10 p.m., I heard Sarah's key in the lock. But before she came in, I heard that tapping again. Tap, tap, tap. Coming from the empty room. Sarah walked in, looking tired. The tapping stopped. She kissed my cheek and headed for the shower. I followed her. "Sarah, we need to talk about that room." She turned on the shower. "What about it?" "I heard something in there, last night and just now." She was quiet for a moment. "You went in?" "Yeah, to charge my phone. But that's not the point. There's something—" "Don't charge anything in there," she interrupted. "Just don't go in there anymore, okay?" She stepped into the shower before I could respond. I lay in bed that night, Sarah breathing softly beside me. The digital clock read 2:47 a.m. when the whispers started again. Sarah didn't stir. How could she sleep through this? The whispers grew louder. I could almost make out words now. Almost. At 3 a.m. exactly, a loud thud came from the room, like something heavy falling. Sarah bolted upright. "Did you hear that?" I asked. She grabbed my arm. Her hand was trembling. "Don't go look, please." Another thud, then another, like footsteps but too heavy to be human. The whole apartment seemed to vibrate. What the fuck is going on? I threw off the covers. "Mark, don't." Sarah tried to hold me back, but I pulled away. The thud stopped when I reached the hallway. The door was closed, but blue light pulsed around its edges like a TV with bad reception. The whispers had become a low moan. I reached for the doorknob. Sarah screamed behind me, "No!" Too late. The door swung open. The room wasn't empty anymore. The clean circle in the dust had grown to fill the entire floor. In the center stood a figure, tall and thin, its proportions all wrong. Its head nearly touched the ceiling. It had no face, just smooth, pale skin stretched tight over a skull-like shape. Its arms hung down past its knees, fingers dragging on the floor. Blue light rippled across its surface like water. As I watched, frozen, it slowly turned its head toward me. Where eyes should have been, there were only deep black hollows. I slammed the door and ran. Sarah was already grabbing her keys and phone. We spent the night in her car, parked outside a 24-hour diner. "How long?" I asked finally as the sun came up. "How long has it been there?" Sarah stared straight ahead. "Since I moved in, 2 years ago. The landlord said the room came with the apartment. Said I couldn't change anything about it, couldn't even paint the walls." She laughed, a harsh sound. "The rent was so cheap. Now I know why. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? Would you have moved in if I had?" I didn't answer. We both knew I wouldn't have. "It never came out before," she continued. "It stayed in there until you brought electronics in. The charging phone. It must have given it power or something. I don't know." We drove to her parents' house that morning. Called a moving company to pack up our stuff. Everything except what was in that room. Sarah broke the lease. Lost her security deposit. We didn't care. The new apartment costs more, but every room is usable, normal, yet sometimes at night I still hear it. Not real sounds, just memories. Tap, tap, tap. And I wonder about that empty room, and who lives there now, and whether they've tried charging their phone in there yet. Sarah doesn't talk about it. She threw away the old lease with the old address. But last week I caught her deleting a text from her old landlord. Just 4 words. "The room misses you." I deleted my contact info from the moving company's database, changed my email address, switched phone carriers. I'm not taking any chances. Because sometimes, late at night, my phone screen flickers with a blue light I've seen before. And in those moments I swear I can hear whispers growing louder, almost clear enough to understand. But I don't want to understand. Some doors should stay closed. Some rooms should stay empty. And some messages should never be answered, no matter how many times they call. Last night, my new phone died inexplicably. The battery was at 100%, then suddenly nothing. In the darkness of our new bedroom, I heard it, faint but unmistakable. Tap, tap, tap. I threw the phone away this morning. Sarah didn't ask why. She just nodded and handed me a cheap flip phone she'd bought as a backup weeks ago. No GPS, no internet, no apps. "It's harder to track a flip phone," she said. Harder for what to track, I wanted to ask. But I didn't. Because deep down I already knew the answer. That room wasn't just a room. It was a door. And whatever came through it is still looking for us. I check the closets every night now. Look behind the shower curtain, under the bed. The rational part of my brain says I'm being paranoid. But then I remember those hollow eyes, that stretched skin, those 2 long fingers dragging on the floor. Sarah sleeps with the lights on. I don't blame her. Neither of us talks about the fact that we can't remember exactly what our old apartment number was or even the street name. It's like those details have been erased, leaving only the memory of that room, that figure, that blue light. Sometimes I wake up at 3 a.m., my body rigid with fear, convinced I can hear whispers coming from our new closet. But it's never real, just echoes of that night playing tricks on my mind. We're safe now. That's what I tell myself. We moved far away, changed our information, left no trail. But yesterday I found something in our new mailbox. A small piece of paper, blank except for a single mark. A perfect circle drawn in dust. I burned it immediately. Didn't tell Sarah. But that night, as we lay in bed, both pretending to sleep, I heard her whisper something, so quiet I almost missed it. It knows where we are. I pretended not to hear, pretended not to notice when she got up and checked all the doors and windows again, pretended not to see her delete another text from an unknown number. But I know she's right. Because this morning when I looked in the mirror, I saw something in the reflection behind me. Just for a second. A tall, thin shape. Faceless. Waiting. I didn't turn around. Sometimes not looking is the only way to stay sane. We're moving again next week. No forwarding address this time, no smartphones, no social media, no electronic trails. Because now we know the truth. In a world of endless connections, some things are better left disconnected. Some doors are better left closed. And some rooms should stay empty. But late at night, when the power flickers and the shadows grow long, I wonder if it matters. If anywhere is really far enough away. Because in those moments between sleeping and waking, I can still hear it. Tap, 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 and it's getting closer. I shouldn't have agreed to house sit for Mike. That's what I keep telling myself as I sit in my car outside his childhood home at 3 a.m., engine running, hands shaking on the steering wheel. I need to write this down while it's fresh. While I can still remember every detail of what happened in there. Maybe then someone will understand why I ran. It started 3 days ago when Mike called asking for a favor. He'd inherited his parents' old house after they moved to Florida, but hadn't been able to sell it yet. The pipes had burst during the winter freeze, and he needed someone to stay there while the plumbers fixed everything. I'd been between jobs for 2 months, so a week in a quiet suburb sounded perfect. Free lodging, plus Mike would pay me. Easy money. The house looked normal enough from the outside. 2 stories, red brick, white trim that needed painting. Mike gave me a quick tour when I arrived. Kitchen, living room, 3 bedrooms upstairs. Standard stuff. Then we reached the basement door. "This stays locked," he said, pulling out an old brass key. "Nothing down there but junk and the furnace. No reason to go poking around." He demonstrated the deadbolt. Thick steel, newer than the rest of the house's hardware. "Just leave it be, okay?" I shrugged. Made sense. Old houses collect crap in their basements. Who wants to deal with that? The first day went fine. The plumbers came, did their work, left. I caught up on some reading, watched TV, ordered pizza, normal house-sitting stuff. But that night, I noticed something odd. I was heading upstairs to bed when I heard it. A soft thump from behind the basement door, like someone bumping against it. I froze, listening. Nothing. Must have been the house settling. The next morning I convinced myself I'd imagined it. Old houses make weird noises. But around noon I was in the kitchen and saw the door move. Not much, just a slight wobble, like someone had grabbed the handle on the other side and given it a gentle shake. The deadbolt held firm. I called Mike. "Hey, weird question. Does the basement door ever, move on its own?" "What do you mean?" His voice got tight. "I don't know, just seems like it shakes sometimes. Probably just air pressure or something." "Yeah, probably that. Listen, just don't mess with it, okay? The lock's there for a reason. Keep it shut." I wanted to press him, but something in his tone made me back off. Still, I started watching the door more closely. Every few hours, it would twitch. Sometimes just a tremor. Sometimes a definite pull, like someone testing the handle. The deadbolt never budged. That second night, the sound started. I was up late streaming a movie when I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, deliberate steps crossing the second floor. I muted the TV. The steps continued, someone wearing heavy boots, moving from room to room. I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911. Then the footsteps reached the top of the stairs and started down. Each step creaked under invisible weight. My heart hammered. I couldn't move. The steps reached the bottom of the stairs. Stopped. Then they started again, heading toward the basement door. I watched, barely breathing, as they crossed the entry hall. The door didn't open. The steps simply passed through it, continuing down into the basement. I spent the rest of the night on the couch, every light in the house blazing. No more sounds came from below. When morning arrived, I seriously considered leaving. But I'd promised Mike. And really, what had actually happened? Some weird noises in an old house. I was being stupid. The third day, things escalated. The door's movement became more violent, sharp yanks that made the frame rattle. The footsteps returned, but now they paced, up and down the basement stairs for hours, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, always that same heavy tread. I tried drowning it out with music, TV, anything. Nothing helped. The sounds cut through everything. By evening, I was a wreck. I hadn't slept properly in 2 days. Every noise made me jump. That's when I made my mistake. I convinced myself I had to know what was down there. Just a quick look. Then I could prove to myself it was nothing, just pipes and old furniture making noise. I found the key where Mike had left it, on top of the kitchen door frame. My hands shook as I approached the basement door. The footsteps had stopped. The house was completely silent. The key slid into the lock. I hesitated, then turned it. The deadbolt clicked back. I reached for the handle. Before I could touch it, something slammed into the other side of the door. Hard. The impact knocked me backward. The door shuddered in its frame as something struck it again and again. Through the wood came a sound. Not quite a voice, not quite a growl, but it was trying to form words. I scrambled away, fumbling for the key. The pounding continued as I fought to get the key into the lock. Just as I turned it, the handle started to turn from the other side. I heard the mechanism grinding as whatever was down there fought against the deadbolt. The key nearly snapped in my hand, but the lock held. The assault on the door continued for another minute, then stopped abruptly. In the silence that followed, I heard something new. Crying. Soft, muffled sobs coming from the basement. They sounded almost human. Almost. I backed away from the door. My phone was already in my hand. Mike's number dialed. "What the hell is in your basement?" I demanded when he answered. A long pause. "You tried to open the door, didn't you? There's something down there. Something alive." Mike sighed. "Listen carefully. Get out of the house. Right now. Don't pack. Don't grab anything. Just go. I'll be there in 4 hours. Not until you tell me what's going on. Remember Tommy? My little brother?" I hadn't thought about Tommy in years. He'd disappeared when we were kids. Just vanished one day. They never found him. What about him? He never disappeared. He changed, started becoming something else. Mom and Dad, they tried to help him, tried doctors, priests, everything, but he kept getting worse, more violent, less human. The basement was the only place strong enough to hold him. I could barely speak. "That thing down there? That's Tommy?" "Part of him, maybe. We don't know anymore. Just get out, please." I didn't need to be told again. I ran for my car, not even bothering to lock the front door behind me. As I pulled out of the driveway, I glanced back at the house. Through the basement window, I caught a glimpse of movement, something pale pressing against the glass. A hand, but with too many joints, fingers too long and sharp. That was 20 minutes ago. I'm still sitting in my car, a mile away, trying to make sense of it all. My phone keeps buzzing, Mike calling back. But I can't talk to him yet. Can't process what he told me. Can't forget what I saw. And I keep thinking about Tommy, about a little kid trapped in that basement for 20 years, slowly turning into whatever I heard behind that door. Was anything human still left in there? Was that why it cried? The sun's coming up now. Mike will be here soon. He'll want to know exactly what happened, what I heard, what I saw. I'll tell him everything I've written here. But I won't go back in that house. Some doors are locked for a reason. Somewhere behind me, a dog starts barking, then another. A car alarm goes off in the distance. I look in my rearview mirror, half expecting to see something moving in the pre-dawn shadows. But there's nothing there. Just an empty street growing lighter by the minute. I start my car. Time to get as far away from here as I can. Yet even as I drive, I can't shake one final horrible thought. The basement door had a deadbolt on both sides. Not just to keep people out, to keep something in. I still struggle to sleep at night. The doctors say it's PTSD. Maybe they're right. What happened that night in Thompson Woods changed everything I thought I knew about reality. I need to write it down, to get it out of my head. Maybe then I can finally rest. It started as a stupid dare. 5 of us, me, Mike, Sarah, Tom, and Jenny, decided to do a night hike through Thompson Woods. We were celebrating Mike's promotion at work, and after too many beers at O'Malley's bar, someone suggested we should do something crazy. The woods were only a mile from the bar, and we were just drunk enough to think it was a good idea. The temperature had dropped to around 45 degrees when we started walking. I remember checking my phone. 11:47 p.m. The moon was full, but the trees blocked most of the light. We used our phone flashlights to navigate the trail, laughing and shoving each other like teenagers. "Watch it, asshole!" Sarah yelled when Mike pretended to push her off the trail. Their laughter echoed through the trees. I walked behind them with Jenny and Tom, the gravel crunching under our feet. The first weird thing I noticed was the silence. It hit suddenly like someone had pressed a mute button. The crickets stopped chirping. The wind died. Even our footsteps seemed muffled. "Hey guys," Jenny stopped walking. "Do you hear that?" We all stopped. At first I heard nothing. Then I caught it. A soft scratching sound, like fingernails on tree bark. It came from somewhere in the darkness beyond our lights. "Probably just a raccoon," Tom said, but his voice cracked. We kept walking, but closer together now. The scratching followed us. Sometimes it came from the left, sometimes the right. Sometimes it seemed to be right behind us, but when we turned around, nothing was there. That's when we found the cabin. It appeared suddenly around a bend in the trail, a dark shape against the darker trees. The building was maybe 20 feet square, with walls made of old logs and a roof that sagged in the middle. No windows, just a door hanging crooked on rusty hinges. "This wasn't here before," Mike said. He'd grown up in the area and hiked these woods hundreds of times. "Maybe we took a wrong turn?" Sarah suggested. I pulled out my phone to check the map, but there was no signal. The others checked their phones too, all dead, even though they'd been fully charged when we left the bar. The scratching sound got louder. Something moved in the trees behind us. Just a shadow, but we all saw it. Without discussing it, we ran toward the cabin. Mike reached the door first and yanked it open. The hinges screamed. We piled inside and Tom slammed the door shut behind us. Our phone lights revealed a single room with a dirt floor, empty except for an old wooden chair in one corner and what looked like a trap door in the floor. The air smelled wrong, like wet earth and something else I couldn't identify. "What the fuck is this place?" Jenny whispered. Before anyone could answer, we heard footsteps outside. Slow, deliberate steps circling the cabin. The wooden walls creaked as something pressed against them. Then the whispering started. It wasn't English. It wasn't any language I recognized. The sounds were wrong. Too many consonants. Words that seemed to fold in on themselves. Multiple voices. Getting closer. Speaking faster. Sarah grabbed my arm. Her nails dug into my skin. "Tell me you guys hear that." "We need to get out of here," Tom said. He took a step toward the door. The whispering stopped. The silence lasted maybe 5 seconds. Then something slammed into the door so hard the whole cabin shook. Tom jumped back. Sarah screamed. More impacts followed. On the walls, the roof. The logs groaned under the assault. Dust and dirt rained down from the ceiling. "The trapdoor," Mike said suddenly. He was already pulling at the iron ring set into the wooden floor. "Help me." Tom and I grabbed the ring. The door was heavy, but it lifted with a grinding sound. Our lights revealed a hole about 3 feet square with old wooden steps leading down. The attacks on the cabin intensified. Something was tearing at the roof. We could hear wood splintering. "Go!" I shouted. "Now!" Sarah went first, then Jenny. Tom followed. Mike hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you. Go." He disappeared down the steps. I moved to follow, but stopped when I heard the door start to splinter. I turned and shined my light toward the noise. Through the gaps in the breaking door, I saw movement. Shapes that didn't make sense. Long limbs. Too many limbs. And eyes. Dozens of glowing eyes. I almost fell down the steps in my rush to follow the others. I pulled the trap door shut above me, just as the cabin door exploded inward. The steps led down about 15 feet to a narrow tunnel. I could see the others' lights ahead, moving fast. I ran after them, trying not to think about the sounds coming from above. The scraping, the chittering, the impossible footsteps. The tunnel curved and branched. We took turns at random, running blind. The air got colder. The walls changed from dirt to stone. Water dripped somewhere ahead. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, we hit a dead end. Solid rock wall. No other passages. "No, no, no," Sarah said. She was crying. We turned around, but the sounds were getting closer. Our lights showed nothing in the darkness of the tunnel, but the whispers echoed off the stone walls. They were speaking faster now, almost frantic. "Kill the lights," Mike whispered. "What? Are you crazy?" Jenny hissed. "Trust me. Kill them." One by one, we turned off our phone lights. The darkness was absolute. I pressed my back against the cold stone wall, trying to control my breathing. The whispers got closer. I could smell them now, a musty, organic smell that made my stomach turn. Something scraped against stone just around the corner. I closed my eyes, even though it made no difference in the pitch darkness. My heart pounded so hard I was sure they could hear it. The scraping stopped, right in front of us. I felt something brush against my face, something cold and rough like tree bark. I bit my lip to keep from screaming. The whispering was right in my ear now. I could feel breath on my skin, but it wasn't warm like human breath. It was cold, like wind from a deep cave. Then, suddenly it stopped. We stood frozen in the darkness for what felt like hours. Nobody dared move or speak. Eventually, Tom whispered, "Are they gone?" The silence stretched out. Finally, Mike clicked his light on. The tunnel was empty. We waited another 10 minutes, then slowly made our way back through the tunnels. It took a long time. We'd gotten turned around during our panic, but eventually we found the steps leading up to the trap door. Mike went first, pushing the door open carefully. The cabin was empty. The door hung in splinters, and deep gouges marked the walls, but whatever had made them was gone. We ran all the way back to the road. Nobody spoke. We didn't stop running until we reached the streetlights. The police didn't believe us, of course. They searched the woods the next day but found nothing. No cabin, no tunnel, not even a foundation or hole in the ground where they should have been. We don't talk about it much anymore. Tom moved to California. Sarah and Jenny stopped returning my calls. Mike still lives in town, but he drinks too much now. I went back once in daylight, trying to find the trail we'd taken. I thought if I could just see the place again, make sense of what happened, maybe the nightmares would stop. I found nothing, but as I was leaving, I heard it, just for a moment, that scratching sound. And underneath it, barely audible, the whispers. I ran. I haven't been back to Thompson Woods since then. But sometimes, late at night, I wake up to the sound of scratching at my bedroom walls. And when I press my ear against the wall, I can almost make out words in that impossible language. The doctors say it's PTSD. They've got me on 3 different medications, but they don't understand. None of them were there. None of them heard the whispers. None of them saw what I saw through that splintering door. I write this now not because I expect anyone to believe me. I write it as a warning. If you're ever hiking at night and find a cabin that shouldn't be there, don't go inside. No matter what you hear in the darkness behind you, don't open that door. Because sometimes, the things that live in the spaces we can't explain get curious about us too. And their curiosity is anything but harmless. Last night I heard scratching in my walls again, but this time it was different. This time I understood one of the words they were whispering. They were saying my name. I need to tell you what happened to me last month at the Sunrise Inn. I've been driving trucks for 20 years, stayed in hundreds of motels, but nothing like this has ever happened before. I'm writing it down now because I keep seeing that damn chair every time I close my eyes. It started around 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was hauling furniture from Chicago to Kansas City and my eyes were getting heavy. Interstate 70 stretches through the middle of nowhere in Missouri, and I knew I had to stop before I dozed off at the wheel. The Sunrise Inn's neon vacancy sign glowed through the drizzle. $29 a night, the sign promised. Good enough. The parking lot was mostly empty. Just my rig, a rusty Chevy pickup, and a couple of old sedans scattered across cracked asphalt. The office smelled like cigarettes and pine-scented cleaner. The night clerk barely looked up from his phone when I walked in. He was a skinny kid, maybe 19, with bad acne and greasy hair. "Single room," I said, pulling out my wallet. He slid me a registration card. "Cash or card?" "Card." I filled out the form while he ran my visa. The pen was chained to the counter with a piece of fishing line. "Room 115, he mumbled, handing me a key attached to a plastic tag the size of a playing card. "End of the building on the right. Checkout's at 11. The rain had picked up when I walked back to my truck. I grabbed my overnight bag and the smaller duffel with my valuables, wallet, laptop, papers. No way I was leaving that stuff in the cab overnight, even in the middle of nowhere. Room 115 was exactly what you'd expect for $30. Musty carpet that might have been beige once, wallpaper peeling at the seams, a queen bed with a thin brown bedspread. A wooden chair sat in the corner by the window, next to a small table with a lamp. The shade was crooked. I dropped my bags on the chair and did my usual check. Locks working, bathroom relatively clean, no obvious signs of bed bugs. The heater chugged to life when I turned it on, pumping out warm air that smelled like dust. The bed creaked when I sat down to take off my boots. My back ached from 10 hours of driving. I could hear the TV from the next room, muffled voices and canned laughter. The rain tapped against the window. I took a quick shower, changed into sweats and a t-shirt, and set my alarm for 6 a.m. The pillow was flat, but I was too tired to care. I remember glancing at the chair before I turned off the lamp. My bags slumped against each other in a heap of nylon and canvas. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. The red numbers on the clock radio were the first thing I saw when my eyes snapped open. At first, I didn't know what had woken me. The TV next door was silent. The rain had stopped. The only sound was the quiet hum of the heater. Then I noticed the chair. My bags were on the floor, not fallen over. They were placed neatly side by side next to the chair legs. But that wasn't what made my skin crawl. The chair looked wrong. The wooden seat was depressed slightly, as if someone was sitting there. The arms had indents where hands might rest. But there was nothing there, just empty air. I lay perfectly still, hardly breathing. The indents in the chair were deep enough that whoever, whatever, was sitting there had to be heavy, adult-sized. The temperature in the room felt about 10 degrees colder than when I'd fallen asleep. My first instinct was to close my eyes and tell myself I was dreaming. But I knew I wasn't. The digital clock numbers were too sharp, the hum of the heater too real. And I could feel the weight of someone else's presence in the room. I tried to think rationally. Maybe the chair cushion was just worn out in that pattern. Maybe I'd moved the bags in my sleep. But I knew that wasn't true. The chair had been solid wood, no cushion, and I hadn't sleepwalked since I was a kid. A car passed on the highway outside, headlights sweeping across the wall. In that brief flash of light, I saw the chair shift slightly, like whatever was sitting in it had adjusted its position. My heart slammed against my ribs. Sweat broke out on my forehead despite the cold. I wanted to run, but that would mean getting closer to the chair. I wanted to scream, but my throat had closed up tight. The minutes crawled by. I lay there rigid under the covers, eyes fixed on the chair. Sometimes I thought I saw movement, a slight depression in the seat-changing position, the arms of the chair flexing under invisible hands. But it was hard to be sure in the dim light filtering through the thin curtains. At 3:42 a.m., I heard something that made my blood freeze, a soft scraping sound like shoe leather against carpet. It came from the direction of the chair. I watched in horror as indents appeared in the carpet, footprints pressing into the fibers moving from the chair toward the bed. Slow, deliberate steps. The temperature dropped another few degrees. My body finally unfroze. I exploded out of the bed, scrambling backward until I hit the bathroom door. My hand found the light switch and I slapped it on. Harsh fluorescent light flooded the room. The footprints in the carpet stopped about 3 feet from where I'd been lying. The chair sat empty, but the seat was still slightly depressed. As I watched, the depression slowly lifted, like someone standing up. New footprints appeared in the carpet, moving toward the room's door. They stopped there. The door handle turned with a click. The door opened about 6 inches, then closed again. The handle turned back to its original position. I stood there shaking for what felt like hours, though the clock showed only 10 minutes had passed. Finally, I forced myself to move. I grabbed my bags from the floor, not bothering to change out of my sweats. I shoved my feet into my boots without tying them. The night clerk looked up from his phone when I slammed my key on the counter. "Checking out early?" "Yeah." My voice was hoarse. He shrugged. "No refunds after midnight." "Keep it." I pushed through the office door and practically ran to my truck. The sun was coming up by the time I pulled into a truck stop 50 miles down the highway. I sat in the cafe drinking coffee until my hands stopped shaking enough to hold the cup steady. I've tried to convince myself there are logical explanations. Old chairs can look worn in weird ways. Buildings settle and make strange noises. Tired minds play tricks. But I know what I saw, and I know something was in that chair. I still drive that route when I have to. But I don't stop at the Sunrise Inn anymore. Sometimes when I pass it at night, I look at the windows. Usually they're dark. But once, just once, I saw a light on in room 115. Through the thin curtains, I could make out the silhouette of that chair in the corner, and something was sitting in it. I've spent the week since then thinking about what happened next, about the cold spots I kept finding in my truck for the next 100 miles, about the weird indents that would appear in my passenger seat when I looked over, about the footsteps I heard in my empty trailer during rest stops. But those are different stories. Right now, I just needed to tell someone about that chair, about what happened in room 115 of the Sunrise Inn on a rainy Tuesday night in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, because I have a delivery to make tomorrow. The route takes me past that motel again. And this time, as I was checking my paperwork, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The delivery address is on the same road as the Sunrise Inn, just 2 miles past it, and it's a furniture store. They're expecting a shipment of wooden chairs. The scratching sound started at 2:17 a.m. I know because I checked my phone the moment I heard it. I'd only been in the house for 3 days, and the renovation crew had left tools and materials scattered everywhere. The basement was just a concrete shell waiting to be finished. I should have known better than to buy a house under renovation, but the price was right, and I needed to move fast after my divorce. I pulled my blanket tighter and tried to ignore it. Probably just rats. The contractor had warned me there might be some until they sealed everything up. But then I heard the voice. "Hello?" It was faint, muffled, coming from below my bedroom floor. "Is anyone there?" I sat up, heart pounding. The voice was distinctly female, young, maybe 20s or 30s. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The bedroom was empty except for my mattress on the floor and some moving boxes. "Hello?" The voice called again. "I need help." My throat went dry. I stood up, my bare feet cold against the hardwood. The renovation crew had pulled up all the carpeting, leaving the floors stripped bare throughout the house. Each step I took echoed slightly. "Is someone down there?" I called out. "Yes, please help." The voice was clearer now, desperate. "I'm trapped." I pulled on my jeans and a t-shirt. The house was cold. The heating system was being replaced and wouldn't be working for another week. My breath made little clouds in the beam of my phone's flashlight as I walked down the hallway to the kitchen. The basement door was in the kitchen, next to where the new refrigerator would eventually go. Right now, there was just an empty space with exposed pipes. I put my hand on the door handle. It was ice cold. "I'm coming down," I called out. "Hold on." The basement stairs were temporary, just wooden planks nailed to supports. The contractor said they'd install proper stairs next week. I tested the first step with my foot. It creaked but held firm. My phone light caught dust motes floating in the air as I made my way down. The basement was huge, running the full length of the house. Plastic sheets hung from the ceiling, dividing it into sections where different work was being done. Stacks of drywall leaned against one wall. Paint cans and tools were scattered around. "Where are you?" I called out. "Over here." The voice came from behind one of the plastic sheets. "Please hurry." I pushed the sheet aside. My light revealed a section of unfinished wall with exposed studs and insulation. Power tools sat on a workbench. A sledgehammer leaned against the wall. "Hello? Behind the wall." The voice was clearer now. "There's a door. They sealed me in." I moved my light along the wall. There, between two studs, I could see the edge of what looked like an old door, painted the same color as the concrete. If I hadn't been looking for it, I would have missed it completely. "I see it," I said. "Hold on, I'll try to open it." I grabbed the edge of the door and pulled. It didn't budge. I could see old hinges painted over multiple times. The door seemed to be sealed shut with paint and age. "Please." The voice was right on the other side now. "I've been here so long." I grabbed the sledgehammer. "Stand back from the door." I swung it at the hinges. The impact sent vibrations up my arms. Again and again, paint chips and rust flew with each hit. Finally, the top hinge broke free. The bottom hinge was tougher. Sweat ran down my back despite the cold. My arms ached. But after several more swings, it gave way too. The door fell inward with a crash. My light revealed a small room, maybe 6 feet square. The walls were bare concrete. Empty except for... The door slammed behind me. I spun around. Complete darkness. "No!" I ran to the door and pushed. It didn't move. "Hey, let me out!" Laughter echoed in the tiny space. Not the young female voice from before. This was different, deeper, wrong somehow. "Thank you," the new voice said. "It's been so long since I had company." I pounded on the door. "This isn't funny. Open it." "But you just got here," the voice said. "And I've been so lonely." My phone light flickered. The battery was at 12%. "Who are you?" I demanded. "What do you want?" "Want?" The voice seemed to come from all around me now. "I want what anyone wants after being trapped alone for decades. I want to talk, to share stories, to pass the time until sunrise." "What happens at sunrise?" "The workers come. They'll let you out. Probably." The voice chuckled. "If you survive that long. If you don't go mad first, like the others." I slid down to sit with my back against the door, knees pulled to my chest. The concrete floor was ice cold through my jeans. My phone showed 2:43 a.m., over 4 hours until sunrise. "There weren't any others," I said. "You're lying." "Am I? How do you think I learned to imitate voices so well? All those people coming to investigate strange sounds, breaking down the door to help someone in distress. Such good Samaritans. I tried to control my breathing, stay calm, think. The contractors have been working down here for weeks. They would have found this room, found you. They don't hear me. I only speak to those who live here, those who sleep above me night after night. Their dreams seep down through the floorboards, make me stronger." My My phone light dimmed further. 8% battery. You're not real, I said. This is some kind of trick, or I'm having a mental breakdown from the stress of the divorce and the move. Oh, I'm very real. The voice was closer now, right next to my ear. Here, let me prove it. Something cold touched the back of my neck. I jerked away, scrambling to the center of the tiny room. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Don't touch me. But I'm so curious about you, the voice said. About your fear, your pain, the loneliness that drove you to buy this house, to live here alone. Stop it. I can taste it on you, the betrayal, the anger, the emptiness inside that keeps you awake at night. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the voice continued, now seeming to come from inside my own head. She left you for someone else, didn't she? Someone younger, more successful. She took everything, the house, the friends, the life you built together. Left you with nothing but debt and broken dreams. Shut up, I screamed. Get out of my head. My phone died. Total darkness crashed down. I heard movement in the darkness. Something sliding across concrete. Coming closer. Now we can really talk, the voice said. No more distractions. Just you and me and all those delicious memories. I pressed myself into a corner, trying to make myself as small as possible. The air had grown colder. Each breath burned in my lungs. Please, I whispered. Just let me go. But I'm not holding you here. The door is sealed from the outside. I'm as trapped as you are. A pause. Though I've learned to make the best of it, to feed on the fear and pain of others, it sustains me, keeps me somewhat sane. Something brushed against my leg. I kicked out reflexively but hit nothing but air. What are you? I don't remember anymore. I was something else once, something human, but that was so long ago. Before they sealed me in, before I learned to reach through dreams, to call out with borrowed voices. Time became meaningless in the darkness. Minutes stretched like hours. The voice kept talking, sometimes whispering, sometimes screaming. It pulled memories from my mind, things I'd tried to forget. My ex-wife's face when she told me she was leaving. The day I found her texts to the other man. The night I got drunk and crashed my car. I started talking back eventually, arguing, crying, raging, anything to keep my mind focused, to stay sane. Tell me about the crash, the voice urged. About the guilt you still carry. No. About how you almost died. How part of you wanted to die. Stop it. About how you bought this house because it was as broken as you are. How fitting that you found your way to me. I slammed my head back against the wall, using the pain to ground myself. You're not real. This isn't real. Then how do I know about the pills you keep in your nightstand? The ones you stare at late at night when the silence gets too loud? I lunged forward, swinging wildly in the darkness. Get out of my head! My fist hit concrete. Pain exploded through my hand. I cradled it against my chest, feeling warm blood drip between my fingers. The voice laughed. Yes, feel it. The pain makes you real, makes you alive. I slumped to the floor, cradling my injured hand. Why are you doing this? Because I can, because I must, because the hunger never ends. The voice was everywhere now, filling the tiny room. Because your pain is exquisite. Time passed. I drifted in and out of consciousness. The voice kept talking, but I stopped responding. Focused on my breathing, on the pain in my hand, on staying sane. I thought about my ex-wife, about the life we'd had, the future we'd planned, all gone now. But for the first time, I felt something besides pain when I thought of her, something like acceptance. You're getting boring, the voice complained. Where's that delicious agony from before? I said nothing. Fine. Let's try something else. The temperature dropped suddenly. Ice crystals formed on my skin. The air grew thick, hard to breathe. Are you afraid of dying? The voice whispered. Of freezing in the dark, alone, forgotten. I pulled my knees tighter to my chest, trying to conserve warmth. My teeth chattered. No one will miss you. No one will look for you. The workers will find your body and assume you had an accident. Just another renovation gone wrong. I focused on my breathing. In, out, stay calm. You're not even trying anymore, the voice shrieked. Fight back, scream, beg. No, I managed through chattering teeth. Then freeze, die, join me in this darkness forever. The cold intensified. My fingers and toes went numb, but somehow the fear was gone, replaced by a strange calm. I'm not afraid of you anymore, I whispered. Liar. You feed on fear, on pain, on darkness. But I've lived through darkness before. After she left, after the crash, I survived. Shut up. You can't hurt me more than I've already been hurt. Can't make me more alone than I've already been. The voice screamed, an inhuman sound of rage and frustration. The cold vanished suddenly. Warmth flooded back into my limbs. You're supposed to break, the voice howled. They always break. Not me, I said. Not anymore. Silence fell, complete and absolute. For a long time, I heard nothing but my own breathing. Then faintly from above, voices, real voices, the renovation crew arriving. Hello, I shouted. Down here, help! Footsteps on the stairs, lights piercing the darkness as the door was forced open. Jesus Christ. One of the workers helped me up. How long have you been down here? All night, I said. The door, it closed behind me. They led me upstairs. The morning sun through the kitchen windows was painfully bright. One of the workers wrapped a blanket around my shoulders while another called an ambulance to check my injured hand. That room shouldn't even exist, the contractor said, shaking his head. It's not on any of the plans. We'll seal it up properly today. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak about what had happened. They wouldn't believe me anyway. As the paramedics arrived, I heard it one last time. That voice, faint and fading. Until next time. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Some darkness you survive. Some pain makes you stronger. Some nights of terror lead to dawns of understanding. I would sell the house, of course. Move somewhere else. Start over again. But I would carry with me the knowledge that I had faced something ancient and hungry in that basement room. Something that fed on fear and pain and loneliness. And I had survived. The paramedic wrapped my hand, asking questions about how I'd heard it. I gave simple answers. The truth would stay buried in that basement room, sealed behind concrete and drywall, whispering to the dreams of future owners. But its power over me was broken. The dawn had come, and I was free. My hands won't stop shaking as I review these photos on my camera's LCD screen. I've been sitting in my car for 20 minutes now, parked in my driveway, unable to go inside. The screen's blue glow illuminates my sweating face in the growing darkness. I need to document this while it's fresh, while I can still remember every detail of what happened at that factory. I'm a commercial photographer, real estate mostly, but I do architectural shots too. Yesterday, my friend Mark told me about an abandoned textile factory on the outskirts of town. He knows I sometimes shoot abandoned places for my portfolio. Perfect for that moody industrial stuff you like, he said. The factory sat at the end of an overgrown access road, about half a mile from the highway. I arrived around 5 p.m., timing it for that golden hour light that photographers chase. The main building was a 3-story red brick structure with rows of tall windows, most of them broken. Vines crawled up the walls. The parking lot had cracked apart, with weeds pushing through the asphalt. I grabbed my camera bag from the trunk, my Canon 5D Mark IV with 3 different lenses. The weight of the bag felt reassuring against my shoulder. I'd done this dozens of times before. Urban exploration photography was nothing new to me. The front entrance was chained shut, but I found a side door hanging off its hinges. The hinges screamed when I pushed it open. My footsteps echoed on the concrete floor as I entered what looked like an old loading dock. The air felt thick with dust and decay. I started shooting right away. The light was perfect. Long shadows stretching across debris-strewn floors, sunbeams cutting through broken windows. I moved methodically through the first floor, documenting the abandoned machinery, the graffiti-covered walls, the way nature was slowly reclaiming the space. The second floor held the main production area. Rows of rusted sewing machines still bolted to long tables, spools of rotting thread, a calendar from 1989 still hanging on one wall. I took dozens of shots, playing with different angles and compositions. That's when I heard the first noise, a metallic clang from somewhere above me. In abandoned buildings, you get used to random sounds, settling foundations, birds in the rafters, wind rattling loose metal. But this sounded deliberate, like someone dropping something heavy. I froze, listening. Nothing but silence followed. After a few minutes, I convinced myself it was just the usual abandoned building noises and kept shooting. The third floor was where things started getting strange. The space was mostly empty except for some old office furniture and filing cabinets. The sunset light streamed in through the western windows, casting long orange rays across the dusty floor. I was getting some great shots. I noticed my breathing had gotten faster. The air felt different up here, heavier somehow. The hair on my arms stood up despite the warm evening air. Again, I told myself this was normal. Empty buildings play tricks on your mind. I moved to the windows to shoot the sunset through the broken glass. That's when my camera's battery died. No warning, just suddenly went black. Annoying, but not unusual when shooting in RAW format. I reached into my bag for my spare battery. My hands fumbled with the battery compartment. Why were my fingers trembling? I got the new battery in and powered up the camera. Started reviewing the shots I'd taken so far. That's when I saw it. In a photo of one of the second floor windows, there was a face. Not a clear face, more like a reflection, distorted by the broken glass, but unmistakably human features. Dark eyes, the suggestion of a mouth. I zoomed in on the LCD screen. The face was partially hidden by glare on the glass, but it was there. I hadn't seen anyone when I took that shot. The building had been completely empty. My heart rate picked up. I started flipping through more photos. There it was again. Different window, same face. And again. And again. The same ghostly reflection appeared in nearly every shot I'd taken that had a window in frame. The face wasn't always in the same position. Sometimes it seemed to be looking directly at the camera. Other times it appeared to be gazing off to the side, but it was the same face. I was sure of it. A loud crash from directly above made me jump. My camera clattered to the floor. This wasn't foundation settling or birds. It sounded like someone had thrown something heavy. I snatched up my camera and ran to the stairwell. My footsteps thundered on the metal stairs as I descended. Another crash, closer this time. I nearly fell as I rounded the landing between the third and second floors. More sounds now, dragging noises, footsteps that weren't mine. They seemed to be coming from everywhere at once. I reached the second floor and sprinted past the rows of sewing machines. The orange sunset light had faded, leaving the space in deep shadows. My chest burned as I ran. Sweat soaked through my shirt. Something moved in my peripheral vision, a dark shape passing between machines. I didn't turn to look, just ran faster. The first floor stairwell felt miles away. My camera bag slammed against my back with each stride. Another crash behind me, followed by the sound of breaking glass. I hit the first floor landing hard, my ankle twisting slightly. Pain shot up my leg, but I kept moving. The exit was just ahead. Pale twilight showed through the broken door. More movement in the shadows. More sounds of footsteps, closer now. The door seemed to stretch further away with each step. I burst through the doorway into the dying daylight, ran full speed across the cracked parking lot toward my car. Only when I reached it did I dare to look back. The factory stood silent. No movement in any of the windows. No sounds except my own ragged breathing and pounding heart. My hands shook so badly I dropped my keys twice before getting the car door open. I threw my camera bag in the passenger seat and started the engine. The tires spun on loose gravel as I accelerated down the access road. Now I sit in my driveway, unable to go inside my house, unable to stop staring at these photos. The face is still there in every shot. I've zoomed in, adjusted the exposure, tried to convince myself it's just a trick of light and shadow. But I know what I saw. And the face seems clearer now than it did before. More detailed. In some shots, I swear I can see it smiling. My phone buzzes. A text from Mark. "Hey, how'd the factory shots turn out?" I don't respond. Instead, I open my email and start attaching photos. I need to document this. Need someone else to see what I'm seeing. My fingers shake as I type. "Mark, look at the windows in these photos. Tell me I'm not crazy. Tell me you see it too." I hit send and wait. 5 minutes pass. 10. My phone buzzes again. Mark's response. "What photos? The attachments are all blank." I check my email. The photos sent successfully. I can see them right there in the sent folder. But when I open them, Mark is right. Every single image is completely black. My hands fumble with my camera again. Heart pounding, I check the memory card. All the photos from today are gone. The card is empty. But I know what I saw. I remember every detail, every angle of that face in the broken windows. And now, as darkness falls completely, I can't shake the feeling that if I look up at my own windows, I might see that face looking back at me. I've been sitting in this car for almost an hour now. My house is dark. I always leave a light on, but not today. The windows are black rectangles against the pale siding. Something moves behind one of those windows. Just a shadow, there and gone. My chest tightens. Sweat rolls down my back despite the cool evening air. I start the car again. I can't stay here. Can't go inside. Not with those windows. Not with what might be watching from behind them. The engine roars as I back out of the driveway. I don't know where I'm going. A hotel, maybe. Somewhere with no windows. Somewhere I can think and try to make sense of what happened today. But even as I drive away, I keep checking my rearview mirror, because I know that face is out there somewhere, and I can't shake the feeling that it's not done with me yet. My phone buzzes again. Another text from Mark. "Just drove by that factory. Weird. Could have sworn it burned down years ago. Nothing there now but an empty lot." I almost run a red light as I read his words. My hands grip the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turn white, because I know what I saw today. I was there. I took those photos, didn't I? The traffic light turns green. I accelerate through the intersection, heading for the highway. In my side mirror, a familiar shape catches my eye, just for a second in the reflection of my car window. A face. I keep driving. The night grows darker, and somewhere behind me, in every window and every reflection, that face watches, waiting. I don't think I'll be taking any more photos for a while. And I definitely won't be looking too closely at windows after dark. But sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder about that face, about who or what it belonged to. And I wonder if anyone else has seen it, if anyone else has photos they can't explain, memories they can't trust, and a lingering fear of reflections in broken glass. I wonder if they're out there somewhere like me, avoiding windows and deleting photos without looking at them, running from something they can't explain and can't forget. And I wonder if that face is watching them too. I wasn't supposed to be working that night at the Fleming Historical Museum. My coworker Mark had called in sick and I needed the extra hours. Money's been tight since Sarah left, taking half of everything with her. So there I was, doing the night shift alone in a building full of dead people's stuff. The pay was decent, and usually nothing happened except dust settling on glass cases filled with Civil War uniforms and Native American arrowheads. That changed 3 weeks ago. I remember the exact moment things got weird. I was doing my 11 p.m. walkthrough, checking the locks on the second floor when I heard it. The distinct click of a door unlocking somewhere down the hall. Not the electronic beep of our security system, but the mechanical sound of an old lock turning. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness as I walked toward the sound. The Victorian exhibit wing was supposed to be locked up tight. I'd checked it myself an hour ago. But now the heavy wooden door stood open about 3 inches, letting out a draft of cold air that shouldn't have been there. The climate control keeps every room at exactly 70 degrees. I pushed the door open, my boots squeaking against the polished floor. Hello? Security. My voice echoed off the glass cases displaying fancy dresses and jewelry from the 1800s. No answer. The motion sensors hadn't gone off, and the security cameras showed nothing on my last monitor check. Still, protocol said I had to investigate. I did a sweep of the room, checking behind every display case and in all the corners. Nothing out of place. No broken windows. No sign of entry. I locked the door again, testing the handle twice to make sure it caught. Must have been a faulty lock. I'd submit a maintenance request in the morning. But then it happened again the next night. And the next. Always around the same time. Always that same mechanical click. Always the Victorian wing. I started taking detailed notes, documenting every incident. The museum director just shrugged it off when I mentioned it. Old buildings make noise, she said. The temperature changes at night. Things settle. That explanation worked fine until last Tuesday when I saw the shadow. I was sitting at the security desk watching the monitors and filling out paperwork. Movement caught my eye on camera 3. A dark shape passing quickly between the Native American pottery displays. By the time I looked up at the actual hallway through the glass partition, it was gone. I rewound the footage. Nothing showed up on the recording. The camera hadn't caught whatever I'd seen. The next night, I brought a personal camera from home. High-end model with night vision capability. I set it up facing the spot where I'd seen the shadow, then went about my rounds. When I checked the footage later, the screen showed nothing but static during the exact 2 minutes when I thought I'd seen something move past the lens. That's when the whispers started. At first, they were so quiet I thought I was imagining things. Just the edge of sound, like someone exhaling from very far away. But they got clearer over the next few nights. Started to form words. James. My name. Whispered in the dark. I was in the basement storage area when I first heard it clearly, cataloging some new acquisitions. The voice came from right behind me. Soft, but distinct. Female, I think. Young. I spun around so fast I knocked over a box of pottery fragments. Nobody there. Just rows of metal shelves disappearing into the shadows. This is private property, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. If someone's here, you need to leave now. The only response was the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. I've been working security for 15 years. Done night shifts at warehouses, office buildings, construction sites. I'm not the jumpy type. But something about hearing my name whispered in that basement made the hair on my arm stand up. I started bringing coffee from home instead of using the break room machine in the basement. Took the stairs instead of the service elevator. Small changes to avoid being alone in the darker parts of the building. But the whispers followed me. They got more frequent, more insistent, sometimes right next to my ear as I was locking up for the night, sometimes echoing down empty hallways ahead of me. Always my name, always in that same young female voice. I tried to rationalize it. Old ventilation system making weird noises. My mind playing tricks after too many long nights alone. But then the photos started appearing. The first one was face down on my desk when I came back from rounds last Friday. Black and white, yellowed with age. It showed a young woman in a Victorian dress standing in front of the museum. The building looked newer in the photo, but it was definitely the same place. She was smiling directly at the camera, one hand raised in a wave. I flipped it over. Written on the back in faded ink. Elizabeth Fleming, 1872. Fleming, the museum's namesake. I'd seen her portrait hanging in the main hall 100 times, but something about this casual photo felt more real, more immediate. I locked the photo in my desk drawer. Didn't mention it to anyone. What would I say? that a 150-year-old photograph materialized on my desk. The next night, another photo appeared, this time on top of the filing cabinet. Same woman, different pose. She was inside the museum now, standing next to a display case that's still there today. Still smiling. Back of the photo, Lizzie with Father's Collections, 1873. I started researching during my off hours. Elizabeth Fleming was the daughter of the museum's founder, Joseph Fleming. She helped catalog and arrange the original exhibits. Died young, typhoid fever at 22. The museum opened to the public a year after her death. More photos kept appearing, one or two each night, always in places I'd just checked minutes before, always showing Elizabeth in and around the museum. The dates on the backs got closer and closer to her death. The whispers got louder too, started forming more words beyond just my name. James, help, find it. I heard that clearly 2 nights ago while doing my midnight rounds. The voice seemed to be coming from the Victorian wing. When I went to investigate, I found another photo waiting on one of the display cases. This one showed Elizabeth standing next to a large wooden cabinet with glass doors. She wasn't smiling this time. Her expression was serious, almost worried. The back of the photo read, Father's Special Collection, 1874. Dated just 2 months before she died. I recognized that cabinet. It's still in the Victorian wing, though it's empty now. Just decorative. But in the photo, it was filled with what looked like books and small boxes. Last night, things escalated. I was in the security office when the power went out. All the monitors went dark at once. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in dim red light. That's when I heard it. Not just a whisper this time, but a clear voice right next to me. James, please, you have to find it. I nearly fell out of my chair. The voice was so close I could feel the cold air that came with it. Find what? I asked, my heart pounding. What are you looking for? The journal, in the cabinet. He hid it after I... The voice faded. The power came back on a few seconds later, monitors flickering to life. Another photo was on my desk. The last one I'd find I somehow knew. It showed Elizabeth lying in a bed, pale and thin, obviously sick. The date on the back was 3 days before her death. I'm sitting in the security office now, writing this all down while I wait for midnight. That's when the Victorian wing door always unlocks. But tonight, I'm going to be ready. I've got my flashlight, my camera, and a crowbar from maintenance. There's something hidden in that old cabinet, something Elizabeth needs me to find. Her father's special collection. What was in those books and boxes? What was so important that her spirit has been waiting 150 years for someone to discover it? The clock just struck midnight. I heard the click of the door down the hall. Time to find out what Elizabeth Fleming wants me to know. I grab my equipment and head toward the Victorian wing. The emergency lights cast long shadows that seem to move on their own. The temperature drops noticeably as I approach the door. It's already standing open, waiting for me. The cabinet looks exactly like it did in Elizabeth's photo, though the glass is clouded with age now. My hands shake slightly as I wedge the crowbar into the seam where the doors meet. The lock is old, probably original. It takes 3 hard pulls before it gives way with a crack. The inside of the cabinet smells like old wood and dust. My flashlight beam shows empty shelves, just like always. But when I run my hand along the back panel, I feel it. A slight gap at the bottom. A false back. The panel comes loose easily, revealing a space behind it. Something is wrapped in yellowed cloth. I pull it out carefully. It's a leather-bound book. A journal by the look of it. As soon as my fingers touch it, the temperature in the room plummets. My breath comes out in white clouds. Thank you, Elizabeth's voice right beside me, clearer than ever. I open the journal with trembling fingers. The first page has elegant handwriting, dated 1874. My dearest Elizabeth, if you are reading this, then I have failed to protect you. The truth about the artifacts, what they really are, where they came from, it was too dangerous. I thought I could control it. Contain it. I was wrong. Your illness was no natural fever. It was my fault, all of it. This journal contains everything I know about the collection. Be careful who you trust with this knowledge. Some truths are better left buried. Father. The rest of the journal is filled with detailed notes, diagrams, and what look like incantations. Joseph Fleming wasn't just a collector of historical artifacts. He was collecting something else. Something dark. A cold hand touches my shoulder. I spin around, but there's nothing there. The journal feels heavy in my hands, like it's pulling me down. Destroy it. Elizabeth's voice is urgent now. But, please, it killed me. It will kill others. Destroy it now. I take out my lighter, against museum policy to carry one. But old habits die hard. The journal catches quickly. Blue flames eat through the pages, and I smell something that isn't just burning paper, something metallic and wrong. The temperature begins to rise as the journal burns. When the last page turns to ash, I feel it. A release, like a deep breath being let out. Thank you, James. Elizabeth's voice is fading now, growing distant. Wait, I call out. What was in the collection? What was your father dealing with? But she's gone. I can feel it. The air is normal again, no more cold spots. The whispers are silent. I clean up the ashes and put the false panel back in place. Close the cabinet doors as best I can with the broken lock. I'll tell maintenance I found it like that during rounds. The rest of my shift passes quietly. No more whispers, no more shadows, no more mysterious photos. But I keep thinking about that journal, about what Joseph Fleming was collecting, about what really killed Elizabeth. Some truths are better left buried, he wrote. Maybe he was right. I've put in my 2 weeks' notice. The museum director was disappointed but understood. Night security work isn't for everyone, she said. If she only knew. I still have all those photos of Elizabeth. They're in a box under my bed. Sometimes I take them out and look at her smile, her wave frozen in time. I wonder if she's finally at peace, now that her father's secrets are destroyed. But sometimes late at night in my apartment, I swear I can still hear whispers. Not Elizabeth's voice anymore. Something else. Something deeper. And I wonder, did we really destroy all the secrets? Or are there more things hidden in that museum waiting to be found? I'm not staying to find out. Let someone else work the night shift. Some mysteries should stay mysteries. I wasn't supposed to be here. That's what I kept telling myself as I paced the hallway of my childhood home at 2 a.m., listening to the sound of my brother's breathing machine through his partially open bedroom door. But Mom needed a break, and I was the only one who could help. Mark's condition had gotten worse over the past year. The doctors called it rapid onset neurodegeneration, but that was just a fancy way of saying my 32-year-old brother was slowly losing control of his body, and no one knew why. I checked my phone. 2:07 a.m. The harsh blue light made me squint in the darkness. 5 more hours until the morning nurse arrived. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floors as I walked to the kitchen. The house felt different at night. Bigger, emptier. The suburban silence pressed against the windows like a physical thing. The coffee maker gurgled as I started another pot. I needed to stay awake. Mark sometimes had episodes where his breathing would get irregular, and someone needed to be alert enough to adjust his BiPAP machine if necessary. I leaned against the counter, rubbing my eyes. That's when I heard it. Hey. Mark's voice, clear as day, coming from the backyard. I froze. My hand was still pressed against my face, and I could feel my pulse quicken under my fingers. That was impossible. Mark hadn't been able to speak above a whisper for months, and he definitely couldn't walk. Come here. I need help. The voice came again, stronger this time. My throat went dry. I walked to the kitchen window and looked out into the darkness. The motion sensor light hadn't triggered, which meant nothing was moving out there. The yard was empty, just Mom's garden and Dad's old tool shed, exactly as they'd always been. Mark? I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. No response. just crickets and the distant hum of the neighbor's air conditioning unit. I practically ran to Mark's room, my sock-covered feet sliding on the hardwood. The door creaked as I pushed it open wider. Mark was exactly where he should be, lying in his medical bed, the BiPAP mask secured over his face, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. The machine's digital display showed normal readings. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness as I walked through the house, checking every room. Living room, empty. Dad's old office, nothing but dusty furniture. Guest bathroom, just the dripping faucet Mom kept meaning to fix. Back in the kitchen, I poured my coffee with unsteady hands, spilling some on the counter. I was tired. That was it. I'd been awake for nearly 20 hours, and my brain was playing tricks on me. I took a long sip of coffee, the bitter liquid burning my tongue. I'm in here now. Mark's voice again, this time from the hallway behind me. The coffee mug slipped from my fingers and shattered on the floor. Coffee splashed across my legs, but I barely felt it. Because that voice, it wasn't just similar to Mark's. It was exactly his voice, down to the slight Massachusetts accent he'd picked up during college, the way he used to sound before the disease. "This isn't funny," I said to the empty hallway, my voice cracking. "Who's there?" Silence. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen counter, the big one Mom used for chopping vegetables. My palms were sweating as I gripped the handle. The logical part of my brain knew this had to be some kind of prank, but logic wasn't exactly in control at the moment. The hallway stretched out before me, dark except for the pale blue nightlight plugged in near the bathroom. I took a step forward, and the floorboard creaked under my weight. The sound seemed to echo through the entire house. "Check the closet." The voice was closer now, just around the corner near the front door. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I reached for the hall light switch with my free hand, but nothing happened when I flipped it. The bulb must have burned out. I edged forward, keeping my back to the wall. The knife felt useless in my sweaty grip. I reached the corner and took a deep breath, then quickly looked around it. Empty. The front door was still locked, deadbolt engaged. No one could have gotten in that way. I checked the coat closet. Nothing but winter jackets and old shoes. A loud thump came from upstairs, directly above me. My whole body went rigid. There shouldn't be anyone up there. I hadn't been to the second floor all night. There was no reason to. Mark's room was on the first floor now, converted from Dad's old office after he got sick. Another thump, followed by the distinct sound of footsteps crossing the upstairs hallway. I retreated to Mark's room, my breathing rapid and shallow. He was still asleep, undisturbed by whatever was happening. I closed his door as quietly as possible and pulled out my phone with trembling fingers. Who could I call? The police? And tell them what? That I was hearing my disabled brother's voice coming from impossible places? That someone might be upstairs even though all the doors and windows were locked? More footsteps overhead, slow and deliberate. They stopped directly above Mark's room. I pressed myself against the wall next to the door, knife raised. Sweat ran down my back, soaking through my t-shirt. The house's central air kicked on, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. "Look at him," Mark's voice said, now right outside the bedroom door. "Look how peaceful he is." My breath caught in my throat. The door handle started to turn, slow and precise. I raised the knife higher, my muscles tensed to strike. The door swung open. Nothing was there. The hallway was empty. I stayed frozen in place, waiting. The only sounds were the whir of Mark's breathing machine and my own ragged breathing. Then I heard it. A wet, dragging sound coming from the hallway. Like something heavy being pulled across the floor. It was getting closer. I wanted to run, but I couldn't leave Mark. Whatever was out there, I had to protect him. The dragging sound stopped just outside the doorway. "Do you want to see what I really look like?" The voice was different now, still Mark's but distorted, like it was coming from underwater. I saw something move in the darkness of the hallway. A shape, darker than the surrounding shadows, began to rise up. It was tall, too tall, stretching up toward the ceiling. I caught a glimpse of something that might have been a face. But it was wrong. The proportions were all wrong. The scream that had been building in my throat finally broke free. I lunged forward with the knife, slashing at the shape. My blade met empty air, and I stumbled into the hallway. The shape was gone. The hallway was empty again. I slammed the bedroom door shut and locked it, then dragged Mark's heavy dresser in front of it. The wood scraped loudly against the floor, but I didn't care. I just needed to keep whatever that thing was away from us. My phone showed 2:43 a.m. 4 more hours until the nurse arrived. I sat on the floor next to Mark's bed, knife clutched to my chest, and waited. The voice called out several more times that night, from different parts of the house. Sometimes it sounded like Mark, sometimes like a twisted version of him. I heard more footsteps, more dragging sounds, but whatever it was, it couldn't get through the barricaded door. When the nurse arrived at 7 a.m., she found me still sitting there, the knife lying next to me on the floor. She asked why the dresser was moved, why there was broken glass and dried coffee in the kitchen. I told her I'd had a rough night. What else could I say? Mark slept through it all, peaceful and unaware. When he woke up, his condition was the same as always, barely able to move, barely able to speak. I called Mom later that morning and told her I couldn't watch Mark anymore. I made up an excuse about work getting too busy. She was disappointed but understood. I felt guilty, but I couldn't go back to that house. Because I know what I heard that night, what I saw. And I know that something is in there with Mark. Something that wears his voice like a mask, something that's just waiting for another chance to show itself. Sometimes late at night, when I'm alone in my apartment, my phone rings. The caller ID shows Mark's number. I never answer it. Because I know Mark can't dial a phone anymore, and I know it isn't really him calling. I heard the knocking at 3 a.m. Not gentle tapping, but desperate pounding that made my front door shake. I was alone in my house, sitting in my living room, trying to read a book while the rain hammered against the windows. The storm had been going for hours, sheets of water running down the glass panes, making everything outside look warped and distorted. The pounding came again, harder this desperate. 3 loud strikes that made me jump in my chair. My heart started racing immediately. Nobody should be out at this hour, especially not in weather like this. I put my book down and stood up slowly. The hardwood floor creaked under my feet as I moved toward the window. The streetlight outside cast a weak yellow glow through the rain, barely illuminating my front yard. Water pooled in the grass and flowed down my driveway in streams. Another series of pounds on the door. "Please, let me in. I need help." A man's voice, raw and frightened. I pulled back the living room curtain just enough to peek out. There was someone standing in the middle of the street. A man, I thought at first. He wore what looked like a dark suit, completely drenched. His hair was plastered to his head. Even from here I could see he was shivering. "Please," he called out again. "My car broke down. I just need to use your phone." My hand went to my pocket, feeling my cell phone there. Something felt wrong. The timing, the situation, none of it made sense. Who would be out driving at 3 a.m. in this weather? And why was he standing in the middle of the street instead of on my porch where he'd been knocking? I glanced at the grandfather clock in my living room to confirm the time. 3:02 a.m. The pendulum swung back and forth with its usual steady rhythm, each tick seeming louder than normal in the quiet house. When I looked back out the window, my blood went cold. The figure in the street had changed. It was still roughly man-shaped, but wrong somehow. The proportions weren't right. The arms too long, the torso too thin. And its face? There was no face. Just smooth, blank darkness where features should be. I stumbled back from the window, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. This couldn't be real. I was tired. The rain was playing tricks with my vision. That had to be it. The pounding came again, but this time from the back door. I spun around, nearly tripping over my own feet. The kitchen was dark except for the dim light spilling in from the living room. Bang, bang, bang. The front door this time. Then immediately after, 3 more pounds on the back door. It was impossible for anyone to move that fast between the doors. I ran to the kitchen and flipped on every light switch I could reach. The fluorescent bulbs flickered to life, harsh white light flooding the room. Through the small window above the sink, I saw something move in my backyard, a dark shape ducking out of view. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone. I tried to dial 911, but my fingers kept hitting wrong numbers. I had to delete and start over 3 times. More pounding now from all around the house. Every door, every window, all at once. The noise was deafening. The walls seemed to vibrate with each impact. Finally, the call connected. 911, what's your emergency? There's something trying to get into my house, I said, my voice cracking. 3487 Oak Street, please hurry. Sir, can you describe the intruder? Another series of pounds made me jump. I don't know. It looked like a man at first, but now... I swallowed hard. Now it's not. It has no face. Please, just send someone. Units are on their way, the dispatcher said. Stay on the line with me. Are all your doors and windows locked? I did a quick mental inventory. Yes, they're all locked. I always check before... The power went out. Every light in the house died at once, plunging me into total darkness. Even the streetlights outside were gone. My phone's screen provided the only illumination. Sir, are you still there? The power's out, I whispered. The whole street is dark. The pounding stopped. The sudden silence was almost worse than the noise had been. Rain continued to fall outside, but otherwise there was nothing. No cars, no wind, no distant sirens. Then I heard it, a wet sliding sound coming from the living room, like something damp being dragged across the floor. Someone's inside, I breathed into the phone. Oh God, something's inside my house. I backed into a corner of the kitchen, trying to make myself as small as possible. The sliding sound grew closer. In the weak light from my phone screen, I saw something dark move past the kitchen doorway. It was low to the ground, like someone crawling, but the movement was all wrong. Too fluid, too smooth. Units are 4 minutes out, the dispatcher said. Her voice sounded very far away. Can you get to a room with a locked door? The basement, I whispered. I have to go. Please hurry. I ended the call and switched to my phone's flashlight. The bright beam cut through the darkness, but I almost wished I hadn't turned it on. Because now I could see the wet trails on my floor. Long, dark streaks leading from the living room to the kitchen. They glistened in the light, but the liquid wasn't clear like rainwater. It was thick and dark, almost black. Moving as quietly as I could, I crept toward the basement door. Each step felt like it took an eternity. The floor creaked under my weight, and I froze every time, listening for movement. I reached the door and carefully turned the handle. The hinges squeaked slightly as I pulled it open. The basement stairs descended into absolute darkness. Something moved behind me. I whirled around, sweeping the flashlight beam across the kitchen. For a split second, I caught a glimpse of something tall and thin ducking behind the refrigerator. Its skin was pale gray and seemed to glisten with moisture. Those impossibly long arms trailed on the ground. I didn't think. I ran down the basement stairs, taking them 2 at a time, nearly falling in my panic. I slammed the door behind me and threw the deadbolt. My father had installed it years ago, joking about needing a secure place for his wine collection. I'd never been more grateful for anything in my life. The basement was cold and damp. Metal shelves lined the walls, stocked with canned goods and emergency supplies. My flashlight beam bounced off mason jars and created strange shadows. The washing machine and dryer sat in one corner, silent and dark. I backed away from the stairs until I hit the far wall, then slid down to sit on the concrete floor. My whole body was shaking. Sweat ran down my face despite the cold. Something scratched at the basement door. Light, delicate sounds like fingernails dragging across wood. Then a thump, as if something heavy had leaned against it. "Please," a voice called down. It sounded almost like the man from earlier, but distorted somehow, like a bad recording. "I just need help. Let me in." I pressed my hands over my ears, but I could still hear it. The voice changed, becoming higher, then lower, cycling through different tones like it was trying to find the right one. Let me in, let me in, let me in, let me in. The words began to run together, becoming a rhythmic chant. Other voices joined in, some deep, some high, some barely human at all. They seemed to come from all around me, not just from upstairs. I squeezed my eyes shut and pressed my hands harder against my ears. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. A new sound cut through the voices, sirens, growing louder. Relief flooded through me. Help was coming. The chanting stopped. I heard rapid movement upstairs, like something large scrambling across the floor. Then nothing. I kept my eyes closed and didn't move, even when I heard car doors slamming outside and voices calling out. Even when heavy footsteps moved through the house above me. Only when someone pounded on the basement door and shouted, "Police! Anyone down there?" did I finally lower my hands. "Yes!" I called back, my voice hoarse. "Yes, I'm here. The door's locked." "Are you injured?" "No, I'm okay. Just give me a minute to unlock it." My legs felt weak as I stood up. I had to brace myself against the wall to stay upright. When I finally made it to the stairs and opened the door, I found 2 police officers with flashlights drawn. More lights moved around upstairs and I could hear radio chatter. "Sir, can you tell us what happened?" one of the officers asked as they helped me up the stairs. I tried to explain, but the words wouldn't come out right. How could I describe what I'd seen? They'd think I was crazy or drunk or high. Then I saw the trails on the floor. Dark streaks leading from the living room to the kitchen, exactly where I'd seen them before. In the beam of a police flashlight, they looked almost purple. "What is that?" I heard one officer ask another. "No idea. Forensics is on the way." They led me outside. The rain had stopped, but water still dripped from the trees and gutters. More police cars had arrived, their lights painting the street in alternating red and blue. Neighbors had come out to see what was happening, standing in small groups on their porches and lawns. An officer wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and sat me down in the back of an ambulance. As a paramedic checked my vital signs, I looked up at my house. All the windows were dark except one, my bedroom window on the second floor. And for just a moment, I thought I saw something move behind the glass. Something tall and thin, with arms that reached almost to the floor. But when I blinked, it was gone. They never found any evidence of forced entry. All the doors and windows were locked from the inside. The strange trails on the floor turned out to be water mixed with some kind of oil, but they couldn't identify what kind. The power outage affected only my house. A blown fuse in the electrical panel, they said. I sold the house a month later. I couldn't stay there. Couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me from the dark corners and empty rooms. The new owners gutted the place and renovated it completely. Sometimes I drive by, just to see it. It looks different now, brighter somehow. But I never drive by at night. And if I'm ever out late and it starts to rain, I go straight home and lock every door and window. Because I know what's out there in the darkness. I know what waits in the rain, wearing faces that aren't quite right, calling out in voices that aren't quite human. And sometimes, on stormy nights when I'm lying in bed, I hear knocking. Not at my door, but inside my walls. Soft at first, then louder, more insistent. And a voice, distorted and strange, asking to be let in. I just pull my blankets tighter and wait for morning. Because I know now, some doors should never be opened. Some help should never be given. And nothing good ever comes knocking at 3 a.m. The security footage from last Tuesday night showed something that wasn't supposed to be there. I've watched the grainy black and white video 20 times now, and my hands won't stop shaking. The shape moves like a person, but it's not solid. It drifts through the tables in my bar like smoke, and I can see the neon beer signs right through it. I should start at the beginning. 3 weeks ago, when things first got weird. I've been running O'Malley's bar for 6 years now. Took over from my uncle after he retired to Florida. It's nothing special, just your typical neighborhood joint in South Boston. Dark wood, brass fixtures, the smell of stale beer that never quite goes away no matter how much you clean. I know every creak in the floorboards, every scratch on the bar top, every regular who comes through those doors. The first thing I noticed was the Budweiser tap. I was doing inventory on a slow Monday afternoon when it started pouring on its own. Not just a dribble, a full stream of beer straight into the drain tray. I checked the mechanism thinking maybe it was stuck, but everything looked fine. When I touched the handle, it stopped. I chalked it up to old equipment and made a note to have the draft system serviced. But then it happened again 2 days later, and again the next week. Always the same tap. Always when no one was near it. The repair guy found nothing wrong with the system. Then the jukebox started acting up. We've got one of those digital touch tunes machines connected to the internet. Sometimes in the middle of normal songs, the audio would distort. Not like normal static or interference, more like someone whispering through the music. Words I couldn't quite make out. Once during closing time, it started playing The Parting Glass, an old Irish funeral song, even though no one had selected it. When I checked the play history, there was no record of the song. My bartender Maria quit after a glass flew off the shelf and shattered against the wall right next to her head. She'd worked here for 3 years, wasn't the jumpy type, but she said she'd felt something brush past her, cold as ice, right before the glass moved. I hired a new guy named Pete to replace her. He lasted 4 days before quitting. Said he kept hearing someone calling his name from the storage room when he was alone in the bar. The final straw was when all the bottles on the top shelf started rattling at once, like there was an earthquake. Except nothing else in the bar was moving. I started staying later after closing, watching and listening. The bar feels different at night when it's empty. Every sound echoes. The ice machine's mechanical groans sound like breathing. The neon signs cast weird shadows that move when you're not looking directly at them. Last Tuesday, I decided to review the security footage from the past few weeks. We've got 4 cameras, one behind the bar, one covering the main seating area, one watching the entrance, and one in the storage room. I went through the tapes methodically, looking for anything unusual. At first, I just saw the things I already knew about. The self-pouring tap, the flying glass, the rattling bottles. But then I noticed something in the background of several clips. A distortion in the image, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. It moved with purpose, drifting between tables, lingering near customers. In one clip, it hovered next to a guy at the bar for almost 10 minutes. The guy kept rubbing his arms like he was cold, even though it was 75 degrees in the bar. The footage from 3 a.m. last Tuesday is what really got to me. The bar was closed, lights off except for the exit signs and neon beer logos. The cameras have night vision, so everything appears in shades of gray. I was about to fast forward when I saw it. A human shape, translucent but clearly visible, walking through the main room. It moved like it was floating an inch above the floor. The edges of the figure were blurry, but I could make out the basic form: head, shoulders, arms, legs. It stopped at the bar and seemed to sit on one of the stools. For 20 minutes, it just sat there. Then it turned its head toward the camera. I swear I could see eyes. I've watched that clip over and over. There's no way it's a trick of the light or a camera malfunction. The other cameras caught it too, from different angles. Whatever it is, it's real. The next night I set up additional cameras and left digital voice recorders running in different parts of the bar. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing, didn't want people thinking I was crazy. Though maybe I am crazy. Would be easier if I was. The new footage showed more activity. The figure appeared again, this time moving behind the bar. It went through the motions of pulling beers and mixing drinks, but its hands passed right through everything it tried to touch. On one recorder, I picked up what sounds like someone humming an old tune, the same song the jukebox had played that night, The Parting Glass. I started researching the building's history. City records show the bar has been here since 1947, though it's had different names over the years. 3 people have died here, 2 heart attacks and 1 guy who choked on a chicken wing in '82. But the ghost, if that's what it is, doesn't match their descriptions. I asked some of the older regulars if they remembered anything strange happening over the years. Most just laughed it off. But Tom Murphy, who's been drinking here since the 60s, got real quiet when I mentioned it. He said his father used to tell stories about a bartender who worked here in the early days. Guy named Michael Donovan. Supposedly he lived in the apartment upstairs and was completely devoted to the bar. Never married, barely took time off. One morning in 1956, they found him dead behind the bar. Heart attack. He was only 42. I found an old photo of the bar from 1955 in the Boston Herald archives. There's Donovan standing behind the bar, tall and thin with dark hair. The image is grainy, but something about his posture, the way he's standing, it matches the figure I've been seeing on the security footage. The activity has been increasing. Last night, every bottle in the well started pouring at once, spraying liquor everywhere. The jukebox played nothing but Irish songs for an hour straight, no matter what customers selected. The temperature behind the bar dropped so low I could see my breath. I'm writing this all down because I need to decide what to do. I could sell the bar, walk away. But something tells me Donovan wouldn't like that. This place was his life, and apparently still is, even after death. Maybe he's not trying to scare people away. Maybe he's just trying to keep doing the job he loved. So I'm going to try something tonight. After closing, I'm going to set up a shot of Jameson. I heard that was his favorite, and just talk to him. Tell him I understand wanting to take care of the place, but he's scaring away my staff and customers. See if we can work something out. I've got the cameras rolling and my phone set to record. If anything happens, at least I'll have proof I'm not losing my mind. Update, 3:47 a.m. I did it. I set up the shot and started talking, feeling like an idiot at first. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. Then the temperature dropped. The shot glass slid across the bar on its own and tipped over, empty. The jukebox clicked on, playing The Parting Glass again, but this time without any distortion. The security camera footage shows the figure appearing beside me at the bar, clear as I've ever seen it. It raised its own ghostly shot glass in a toasting gesture. I couldn't see this in person, only on the footage afterward, but I felt something pat my shoulder, a cold, light touch that made my skin tingle. Since then, things have calmed down. The taps don't pour on their own anymore. The jukebox works normally. Sometimes early in the morning, I catch a glimpse of something in my peripheral vision, a tall, thin shape moving behind the bar. But it doesn't feel threatening. More like protective, watchful. I've hired new staff. I tell them up front about our resident spirit. Some don't believe me. Some do, especially after they've worked a few late shifts. But no one's quit. I think Donovan's learned to coexist with us. He still does his rounds after closing, checking the doors and taps. Sometimes a glass will move a few inches, or the jukebox will play an old Irish song. But that's it. Last week, I framed that 1955 photo and hung it behind the bar. The regulars get a kick out of it, especially when I tell them Donovan's still around, making sure his bar is run right. Some even leave a shot out for him before they leave. I've learned to listen for him. The soft footsteps on quiet nights, the humming of old songs, the gentle clinking of glasses being straightened when no one's behind the bar. It's become part of the rhythm of the place, like the creak of the floorboards and the hum of the neon signs. This afternoon I was doing inventory, just like that first day when the tap started pouring on its own. I felt the familiar cold spot pass by me, and I swear I heard a voice, just barely a whisper, looking low on Jameson. I checked. We were. I guess every bar needs a good manager. Some are just more permanent than others. The security cameras are still running. Sometimes I review the footage, watching our ghostly bartender make his rounds. He moves with purpose, checking the tables, straightening chairs no one can see him touch, standing guard over the place he loved so much in life that he couldn't leave it in death. I've stopped trying to explain it. Some things don't need explaining. Sometimes you just need to pour 2 shots at closing time, one for you and one for the bartender who never really clocked out. They say bars have personalities, shaped by years of laughter, tears, celebrations, and sorrows soaked into their walls. O'Malley's has more personality than most, and as long as Michael Donovan wants to help me run it, I'm happy to have him on staff. Just don't ask him for a Cosmo. He may be dead, but he still has standards. The first thing I noticed when I pulled up to my uncle's house was the smell. Not the musty, abandoned house smell you'd expect after 2 years empty. This was sharper, like wet concrete and old pennies. I sat in my car for a full minute, staring at the peeling white paint and sagging gutters. The lawyer's words kept running through my head. Just clean it up enough to sell. Should take a week, maybe 2. Yeah, right. I hadn't seen Uncle Marcus in 5 years before he died. No one had. He turned into a recluse after Aunt Sarah passed, holing up in this old Victorian on the outskirts of town. Now it was mine, along with whatever mess he'd left inside. The inheritance had come with strings. I had to prep it for sale myself or forfeit the property. Some kind of final lesson from beyond the grave, I guess. Classic Uncle Marcus. The key stuck in the front door. I had to throw my shoulder into it to get it open. Inside, the air was thick and stale. Dust particles danced in the afternoon light streaming through grimy windows. The furniture was all covered in yellowed sheets, like sad ghosts frozen in time. Empty coffee cups sat on every surface, some still with dried brown rings inside. A stack of newspapers by the couch had dates from 2022. I spent that first day opening windows and throwing out obvious trash. The kitchen was the worst. The fridge contents had liquefied into something that made me gag, but I made progress. By sunset, I had filled 6 contractor bags and could actually see most of the countertops. That's when I first noticed the attic door at the end of the upstairs hallway. Something about it made my skin crawl. I told myself I was being stupid. It was just a door. But every time I walked past, my heart would speed up and my palms would get sweaty. I found myself taking the long way around just to avoid that hallway. I slept on the couch that first night. The bedroom still needed too much work, and honestly, I didn't want to sleep up there, not with that attic door looming at the end of the hall. Around 3 a.m., I jolted awake. The house was completely silent, but I could have sworn I heard footsteps overhead. When I finally fell back asleep, I dreamed of that door. The next few days fell into a routine. I'd work from morning till night, clearing out rooms, scrubbing walls, fixing what I could. The place was slowly starting to look habitable, but I still hadn't touched the attic. Every morning I'd tell myself, today's the day, and every evening I'd find another reason to put it off. The weird thing was, I couldn't even explain why it bothered me so much. It was just a feeling, a deep, primal certainty that something was wrong up there. On day 5, I ran out of excuses. The rest of the house was mostly done, and I couldn't ignore the attic anymore. I stood at the bottom of the hallway that morning, coffee cup clutched in my shaking hand, staring at that door. It was just a normal door. Old white paint, brass knob, slightly warped frame. But my chest felt tight just looking at it. I forced myself to walk down the hall. Each step felt like moving through mud. The closer I got, the harder my heart pounded. By the time I reached the door, I was breathing like I'd run a marathon. My hand hovered over the knob. The metal felt ice cold against my palm. The door opened with a long, drawn-out creak. A narrow wooden staircase led up into darkness. The smell hit me immediately. That same sharp, metallic odor I'd noticed when I first arrived, but stronger here. Much stronger. My fingers fumbled for the light switch. Nothing happened when I flicked it. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam caught dust motes swirling in the air. The stairs looked solid enough, though the wood was dark with age. I put one foot on the first step. It creaked under my weight but held firm. That's when I heard it. A soft thump from above, like something being dropped on the floor. I froze, light beam fixed on the darkness at the top of the stairs. Nothing moved. After a full minute of listening to my own ragged breathing, I convinced myself it was just the house settling. I climbed 3 more steps. Each one protested loudly in the silence. Sweat ran down my back despite the cool air. 4 steps. 5. I was halfway up now, and I could start to see into the attic space. Old trunks and boxes lined the walls, sheets draped over bulky shapes. More junk for me to clean. The next step let out a particularly loud groan, and something rolled across the floor above me. Not randomly. It moved directly toward the top of the stairs. I caught a glimpse of something round before it tumbled down past me. I jerked backward, nearly losing my balance. The object, what looked like an old baseball, bounced down the steps and disappeared into the hallway below. My heart was trying to punch through my ribs. "Hello?" My voice came out as a croak. No answer, just the blood rushing in my ears. I raised the light higher, scanning the attic space. The beam caught cobwebs, more boxes, an old rocking chair. The sound of a deep, rasping breath froze me in place. It came from the far corner, hidden in shadows. Not the sound of old pipes or settling wood. This was unmistakably a breath. Slow, deliberate, then another. I scrambled backward down the stairs, nearly falling in my panic. I slammed the door and ran down the hallway, not stopping until I reached the kitchen. I stood there, gripping the counter, trying to slow my breathing. Minutes passed. The house was silent again. When my hands finally stopped shaking, I did what any rational person would do. I called my best friend, Mike. "You really think someone's living in your uncle's attic?" Mike asked after I finished my story. He sounded skeptical. "I know how it sounds, but I heard breathing, Mike, and that baseball didn't roll by itself. Could be raccoons or squirrels. Old houses make weird noises. This wasn't an animal. Will you come check it out with me?" He sighed. "Fine. But if we find a family of raccoons, you're buying drinks for a month." Mike arrived an hour later with a baseball bat and a powerful LED lantern. He let out a low whistle when he saw the house. "Man, your uncle really let this place go." I led him upstairs, explaining about the weird feelings I'd been having about the attic. He nodded but didn't say much. When we reached the door, though, even he hesitated. "Okay, yeah, this is creepy," he admitted. "Something about this door just feels wrong." "Told you." I reached for the knob, then pulled back. "You want to go first?" Mike gripped the baseball bat tighter and pushed the door open. The hinges screamed in protest. He switched on the lantern, flooding the stairway with harsh white light. Nothing moved. No breathing. No rolling baseballs. We climbed the stairs together, the wood creaking under our combined weight. The attic stretched out before us, cluttered but ordinary looking in the bright light. Dust swirled in the beam. That metallic smell was still there, stronger than ever. "Smell that?" I whispered. Mike nodded. "Like old pennies. Blood, maybe." "Blood?" My stomach lurched. "Or rust. Probably rust." He didn't sound convinced. We moved further into the space, Mike sweeping the light back and forth. The shapes under the sheets resolved into old furniture. Chairs, a dresser, more trunks. Everything was covered in a thick layer of dust except... Look. I pointed to a clear path through the dust on the floor, leading to the far corner. Recent footprints. Mike raised the bat. We followed the tracks slowly, our own footsteps surprisingly loud in the stillness. The trail led to a stack of boxes, partially hidden behind a sheet-covered armoire. As we got closer, I could see that the boxes had been recently moved. Their positions didn't match the dust outlines on the floor. I reached for the top box. Mike grabbed my arm. "Maybe we should call the cops." Before I could answer, something crashed behind us. We spun around. The rocking chair I'd noticed earlier was swaying gently, though neither of us had gone near it. As we watched, it slowly stopped moving. "Fuck this," Mike said. "We're calling the cops." That's when we heard the breathing, deep and raspy just like before, coming from right behind us. We turned back to the boxes. The sheet covering the armoire was moving slightly, as if stirred by a breeze. Except there was no breeze in the stale attic air. Mike's hand shook as he raised the lantern higher. The beam caught something dark seeping out from under the bottom box. a thick, dark liquid spreading across the floor. The metallic smell became overwhelming. We ran. I don't remember much about getting down the stairs. I know I stumbled and nearly fell. I know Mike dropped the bat. I know we slammed the attic door so hard it cracked the frame. We didn't stop running until we reached my car. The police arrived 20 minutes later. 4 officers went up to the attic while Mike and I waited in the kitchen. After what felt like hours, they came back down. They'd found nothing. No intruder, no blood, not even the footprints we'd seen. Just dusty old furniture and boxes of Uncle Marcus's junk. The floor's solid, one officer told us. No signs of anyone breaking in. Probably just rats in the walls making noise. Old houses like this, they play tricks on you. I nodded and thanked them, but I knew what we'd seen, what we'd heard. The cops left and Mike went home, making me promise to stay at his place that night. I agreed, but said I needed to grab some clothes first. I went back inside alone. The sun was setting, casting long shadows through the windows. I walked upstairs slowly, my footsteps echoing in the empty house. The attic door stood closed at the end of the hall, innocent looking in the fading light. As I passed it, I heard something scratch against the wood, like fingernails dragging slowly down the other side of the door. I ran. I'm at Mike's house now, writing this all down while it's fresh in my mind. Tomorrow, I'm calling the lawyer. Uncle Marcus can keep his house and whatever's living in that attic. Some inheritances aren't worth the price. But here's the thing that really scares me. I found the baseball. It was sitting on my front seat when I got in my car to leave. The same baseball that had rolled down the attic stairs. I know I never picked it up. I know I never brought it outside. And when I looked closer, I saw what was written on it in faded ink. To Marcus, happy birthday, 1986. Love, Sarah. I still have the baseball. Sometimes, late at night, I swear I can hear it rolling across my bedroom floor. But when I turn on the light, it's always exactly where I left it, waiting, like it knows something I don't. The house is still there, still waiting to be cleaned and sold. The lawyer keeps calling, asking about my progress. I don't answer anymore. Let someone else deal with it. Let someone else climb those stairs and face whatever lives in that attic. Some doors should stay closed. Some inheritances should stay unclaimed. And some answers aren't worth knowing. I dream about that attic now. In my dreams, I always make it to the top of the stairs. I always look behind the boxes. I always see what's waiting in that dark corner. But when I wake up, I can never remember what it was. Maybe that's a mercy. All I know is this. Something is still there, in that attic, breathing in the dark. And sometimes, when I drive past the house late at night, I see a light in the attic window. Not a flashlight or a lantern. Something darker, redder, like dying embers, or eyes. I don't drive past the house anymore. I should have known something was wrong when my GPS started acting up on Highway 16. The screen kept freezing, then jumping back to life, showing routes I didn't recognize. I was tired after 3 days of back-to-back meetings in Seattle, and all I wanted was to get home to Portland before midnight. The first real warning came when the robotic voice told me to exit the highway onto Route 107. I checked the time, 10:42 p.m. This wasn't my usual route home. I glanced at the device mounted on my dashboard, tapping the screen with my index finger. Nothing changed. The blue line insisted I take this exit. Take exit 47B to Route 107, the GPS repeated in that emotionless voice. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. The exit was coming up fast. Maybe there was an accident or road work on my regular route. I'd been driving for 4 hours straight, my back aching from the leather seat of my Audi. The idea of a detour that might save me time was appealing. I took the exit. Route 107 started normally enough, a 2-lane road cutting through dense forest. The pavement was older, rougher than the highway. My headlights caught the yellow center line, faded and broken in places. No streetlights out here. No other cars either. My phone sat in the cup holder, screen dark. I should have checked Google Maps for a second opinion, but both hands stayed locked on the wheel. The trees pressed closer to the road. Their branches reached over like fingers, blocking out what little moonlight filtered through the clouds. The GPS screen flickered. The blue route line disappeared, then reappeared on a different road. "Recalculating," the voice announced. "Turn right in 500 feet." I leaned forward, squinting at the upcoming turn. No street sign, just a narrow dirt road disappearing into darkness. "This can't be right," I said out loud. My voice sounded strange in the quiet car. I reached for the GPS, ready to override it. The screen went black. Shit. I tapped it. Nothing. I pressed the power button. Still nothing. I slowed the car, looking for a place to turn around. The road had no shoulder, just steep ditches on both sides. The trees grew right up to the edge, creating a natural tunnel. I'd have to find a driveway or intersection to turn around. The GPS screen suddenly lit up, bright blue in the darkness. The map showed me somewhere I didn't recognize, surrounded by blank green space. No road names, no landmarks, just that blue line stretching ahead. "Continue straight for 7 miles, the voice commanded. I pressed the home button. Nothing happened. I tried to zoom out on the map. The screen didn't respond to my touch. My headlights caught something moving in the trees. Just a branch swaying in the wind, I told myself. Except there was no wind. The air outside was dead still. The road curved sharply left. As I turned, my headlights swept across something pale in the trees. It disappeared before I could focus on it. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. The GPS screen flickered again. The map vanished, replaced by static. Then blackness. Then the map again, showing me even deeper in the nowhere zone of blank green. "Turn right in 100 feet, the voice said. There was something different about it now. A slight distortion, like bad reception on a phone call. I ignored it. The road ahead was clear and straight. I pressed the accelerator, pushing the car to 60, then 70. The engine's hum filled the cabin, drowning out the GPS voice. The headlights dimmed. Just for a second, but enough to make my stomach clench. I checked the dashboard, everything normal. But the lights dimmed again, longer this time. The darkness pressed against the windshield like a physical thing. Something dark crossed the road ahead, too fast to see clearly, like a person running but low to the ground, moving wrong. My foot jerked toward the brake pedal. The GPS screen strobed, flashing white, black, white. The voice came again, heavily distorted now. "Stop vehicle immediately." "Fuck that," I muttered. But my speed was dropping. The engine didn't sound right. The RPMs were falling even though my foot was still on the gas. The car rolled to a stop in the middle of the road. I turned the key. The engine cranked but wouldn't catch. I tried again. Nothing. The dashboard lights flickered and died. Silence crashed in. The kind of silence you never hear in the city. Absolute and heavy. My breathing sounded too loud. My heart pounded in my ears. The GPS screen was the only light now. The map was gone, replaced by scrolling numbers and symbols I didn't recognize. They moved too fast to read, casting blue shadows across the dashboard. Movement caught my eye. The dome light above my head was blinking. On, off, no pattern I could detect. The other interior lights joined in, creating a strobing effect that made my head hurt. A scratching sound came from the roof, like fingernails on metal. It moved from back to front, stopping right above my head. I froze, not even breathing. The scratching came again, harder this time. A dent appeared in the roof liner, pushing downward. Something was up there. I fumbled for my phone. The screen wouldn't turn on. I pressed the power button, the home button, anything. Dead. The scratching moved to the driver's side window. I didn't want to look, but my head turned anyway. A face pressed against the glass. Not human. Too long, too pale. No features I could make out in the strobing light. Just darkness where eyes should be. I screamed. The face disappeared. Tapping now, all around the car. Like multiple sets of fingers drumming on the metal. The whole car shook slightly. The interior lights strobed faster. I saw movement in the trees. dark shapes sliding between trunks, more faces, pressing against every window. The tapping grew louder, became pounding. The GPS screen went crazy, flashing through colors: red, green, blue, white. The distorted voice spoke again. "Exit vehicle now." "No fucking way," I whispered. My hands shook as I tried the key again. The engine coughed but wouldn't start. Something hit the windshield hard enough to crack it. A spiderweb of lines spread across the glass. Another hit. The crack grew. The pounding on the roof became rhythmic. Thump, 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 like a heartbeat. The dents grew deeper with each impact. I looked in the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty. Then it wasn't. A shadow sat there, darker than the darkness around it. It had no definite shape, but it was moving, growing. The GPS screen exploded in a shower of sparks. Glass rained onto the dashboard. The interior lights went into overdrive, strobing so fast they became a constant flickering glare. The shadow in the back seat reached forward. I felt cold breath on my neck. I grabbed the door handle and threw myself out of the car, hit the ground hard, rolled into the ditch, leaves and dirt in my mouth. Pain shot through my shoulder. I scrambled to my feet and ran. Didn't look back. The strobing lights from the car cast jumping shadows through the trees. Branches whipped my face, roots tried to trip me. Behind me, metal screamed. The sound of my car being torn apart. Other sounds too. Clicks and whistles and things that might have been words in a language I didn't want to understand. I ran until my lungs burned. Until the lights from my car disappeared. Until the only sound was my feet pounding on dirt and my ragged breathing. A clearing opened up ahead. Moonlight showed abandoned buildings, some kind of old factory or mill. Broken windows gaped like hungry mouths. Rusted metal glinted dully. I had a choice, the buildings or the woods. The sounds behind me were getting closer, clicking and whistling in that wrong language. I chose the buildings. Sprinted across open ground toward the nearest door. It hung crooked on one hinge. I squeezed through the gap. Darkness inside. My eyes struggled to adjust. Dust and decay filled my nose. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. My footsteps echoed on concrete. I found a corner and pressed my back against cold brick. Tried to quiet my breathing. Listened. The sounds from outside stopped. Complete silence fell. Even the water stopped dripping. A scraping noise above me. Something moving on the roof. More scraping from the walls. They were all around the building. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Impossible. It was dead. But when I pulled it out, the screen was on. Not my normal screen, just white text on black. Wrong turn. The screen flashed once and went dark. In that flash of light, I saw what was coming through the broken windows, what was crawling down the walls, what was reaching for me with two long fingers. I ran again, through dark hallways, up metal stairs that groaned under my feet. Always up. They were behind me, beside me, above me, moving in ways that hurt my eyes to see. I reached the roof. Moonlight showed me empty walls, empty windows, empty lots spreading in every direction. No roads, no lights, no signs of civilization. The GPS voice spoke from nowhere and everywhere. You have reached your destination. They came up through the roof access door, pulled themselves up the walls, rose from the shadows like smoke given form. I backed away until my heel hit the edge of the roof, looked down at concrete 4 stories below, looked at the things closing in. The choice was easy. I jumped. The impact never came. Instead, I opened my eyes to find myself back in my car on Highway 16. The GPS showed my normal route home. The clock read 10:42 p.m. My hands shook on the steering wheel. Exit 47B was coming up. The sign for Route 107 glowed in my headlights. The GPS screen flickered once. I drove straight past the exit. Didn't stop until I reached Portland. Threw the GPS in the trash as soon as I got home. I still take the long way around that part of Highway 16. Still check my rearview mirror more often than I need to. Still wake up sometimes thinking I hear clicking and whistling outside my window. And every time I see a GPS screen flicker, even for a second, my hands start to shake. Because I know what's waiting down those wrong turns. In the dark places between here and there, where the maps stop making sense and the roads lead nowhere. They're still waiting. And sometimes late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder if I really escaped. Or if I'm still falling from that roof, about to wake up again at 10:42 p.m., approaching exit 47B, where it all begins again. But I'll never know for sure, because I'm never taking that exit again, never following where those things want me to go. Some turns, once taken, can't be undone. Some roads don't lead home. The GPS on my dashboard stays dark now, and that's exactly how I like it. My hands still shake when I walk past streetlights at night. My throat gets tight, my heart pounds, and sometimes I have to stop and catch my breath. I used to think I knew what fear was. I'd been mugged once, had a few close calls while driving, even survived a house fire when I was a kid. But real fear? The kind that rewires your brain and changes you forever? I didn't know that until last October. It was a Tuesday night, around 10:30 p.m. I remember checking my watch right before everything started, thinking I should hurry up and get Max's walk done so I could catch the end of the game. Max was my 3-year-old German Shepherd, a big, confident dog who'd never shown fear of anything except thunderstorms. We'd done this walk hundreds of times before, always taking the same route through our quiet suburban neighborhood in northern Massachusetts. The temperature had dropped into the low 40s and I zipped my jacket up to my chin. Dried leaves crunched under my boots. The wind had picked up, making the tree branches scrape against each other. Normal sounds, regular night sounds. I'd lived here for 6 years and knew every house, every crack in the sidewalk, every streetlight. Max trotted ahead of me on his leash, nose to the ground, doing his usual sniffing routine. We were about halfway through our normal loop when I noticed the broken streetlight. It was the tall one at the corner of Maple and Cedar, right where the houses thinned out near the wooded area that backed up to the elementary school. I frowned, trying to remember if it had been broken the night before. I didn't think so. This neighborhood was good about maintaining things like that. The light fixture hung dead and dark, leaving that corner in shadow. As we got closer, I saw something standing under it. At first, my brain tried to make it into something normal, maybe a telephone pole I hadn't noticed before, or one of those temporary construction signs. But it wasn't either of those things. It was a figure, a person, an impossibly tall person. I stopped walking. Max stopped too. The figure stood completely still, and even in the darkness, I could tell it was facing us. It had to be at least 8 feet tall, maybe taller. Its proportions were wrong, arms too long, torso too thin. It wore what looked like dark clothes, but they hung on its frame in a way that didn't make sense, like they were draped over a wire sculpture. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded thin and weak in the cold air. No response. I took a step backward, tugging gently on Max's leash. "Come on, boy. Let's go home." Max didn't move. His entire body had gone rigid. I could feel the leash trembling from how hard he was shaking. In 3 years, I had never seen him act like this. Max was the kind of dog who charged at things that scared him, who barked at threats. He wasn't a coward, but now he just stood there, trembling, his tail tucked between his legs. I looked back at the figure. It was closer. I hadn't seen it move. I hadn't even blinked. But it was definitely closer, maybe 30 feet away now instead of 50. Still in that same pose. Still perfectly still, but closer. My mouth went dry. The rational part of my brain started throwing out explanations. It was a trick of the light. I was tired. Maybe someone was playing a prank. "Who's there?" I said, louder this time. "This isn't funny." The figure's head tilted to the side, not smoothly, like a person would move. It was more like watching a door slowly swing on rusty hinges. The angle was wrong, too far to the side, like its neck had snapped. Max whimpered. It was a high, frightened sound I'd never heard him make before. I pulled harder on the leash. "Max, come on, come on." He wouldn't budge. His claws scraped against the sidewalk as he tried to back up, but his legs didn't seem to work right. I grabbed his collar with my free hand, ready to drag him if I had to. I looked up again. The figure was 20 feet away now. Still no movement, still that same impossible pose. But closer. Its head was still tilted, and now I could see that its neck was too long, stretching out from dark shoulders like a snake. My heart slammed against my ribs. Sweat ran down my back despite the cold. I bent down and scooped Max up, all 90 pounds of him, not caring about the strain in my back. His whole body shook against my chest. I turned and ran. My boots pounded against the sidewalk. Max's weight made my arms burn, but terror gave me strength I didn't know I had. I didn't look back. I couldn't look back, but I could feel it behind us. The air got colder. The streetlights ahead of us flickered. Each one went dark as we passed under it, like something was following us, consuming the light. The darkness pressed in closer with each step. I reached the intersection of Maple and Birch. 4 more blocks to home. 3 more blocks. 2 more blocks. Max's claws dug into my shoulder. He was still whimpering, the sound mixing with my own ragged breathing. 1 more block. The darkness followed, swallowing every light we passed. My lungs burned. My arms felt like they would snap. But I couldn't stop. Couldn't slow down. I fumbled with my keys at the front door, nearly dropping them twice before I got the right one. The porch light flickered and died as I shoved the key into the lock. The door swung open and I practically fell inside, kicking it shut behind me. I dropped Max. He scrambled away, heading straight for the corner of the living room where he huddled, still shaking. I slammed the deadbolt home, then the chain lock, then slid down to sit with my back against the door. My chest heaved as I tried to catch my breath. My arms felt like jelly. Spots danced in front of my eyes. For a long moment, I just sat there, listening to my own ragged breathing and Max's whimpers. Then I heard something else. Footsteps on my front porch. Slow, deliberate steps. Not the sound of shoes or boots, more like something hard and sharp tapping against the wood. The porch creaked. A shadow passed across the narrow window next to the door. It was too tall for the window. I could only see a section of its torso, like a dark slice moving past the glass. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. I held my breath. My heart pounded so hard I was sure whatever was out there could hear it. The temperature in the entryway dropped. I could see my breath forming clouds in front of my face. Something scraped against the door right behind my head. Not knocking, more like long fingers dragging down the wood. The sound went on and on, moving from the top of the door all the way to the bottom. Then silence. I don't know how long I sat there, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. Minutes stretched into hours. Max stayed in his corner, occasionally making those frightened whimpers. I didn't dare get up to comfort him. Eventually, gray light started to seep in through the windows. Dawn. The temperature slowly returned to normal. Birds started chirping outside. When the sun was fully up, I finally found the courage to look out the front window. The porch was empty, but there were marks on the door, 4 long scratches running from top to bottom, deep enough to expose the bare wood underneath the paint. I called in sick to work. Spent the day sitting on the couch with Max pressed against my side, both of us jumping at every sound. I tried to convince myself it had been a dream, or a hallucination, or something I could explain. But the scratches on the door were real, and Max's behavior was real. He wouldn't go near the front door, wouldn't even look at it. That night, I drove Max to a friend's house in the next town over. I told them I needed someone to watch him while I dealt with a family emergency. Then I came home and covered every window with blankets. I turned on every light in the house. I sat in my bedroom with a baseball bat across my lap, watching the clock tick past midnight. Nothing came. The next night was the same. And the next. After a week, I started to relax slightly. Started to think maybe it had been a one-time thing. I was wrong. It happened again 2 weeks later, when I was driving home late from picking Max up from my friend's house. We were on a dark stretch of road about a mile from home. The streetlights ahead started going out one by one. Max started whining in the back seat. I pressed the gas pedal harder, but the car started to sputter and die. The headlights flickered and went dark. In the beam of the last working streetlight ahead, I saw it, standing in the middle of the road, waiting. Its head turned toward us with that same horrible mechanical movement. This time I could see its face, or where a face should have been. Just smooth, pale skin stretched over a skull-like shape. No features, no eyes. I cranked the key in the ignition. The engine coughed and caught. I threw the car into reverse and floored it, tires screaming against the asphalt. Max was barking now, that high-pitched, terrified sound. In the rearview mirror, I saw the last streetlight go out. We made it home somehow. I sold the house the next week, took a loss on it, and moved 2 states away. Max and I live in an apartment now, in a busy part of the city where there are always people around and lights on. I don't walk him after dark anymore. I installed extra locks on the doors and bright security lights that run on a backup generator. Sometimes I think I see it, standing at the edge of the parking lot or in the shadows between buildings. Just for a second, just out of the corner of my eye. And sometimes, late at night, I hear scratching at my door. Max hears it too. He'll press himself against my leg, trembling, making those whimpering sounds I never heard before that night. We sit together in the bright living room, waiting for dawn, knowing that somewhere in the darkness something impossibly tall is waiting, watching, getting closer even when we can't see it move. I check the streetlights every night now. I watch for shadows that shouldn't be there, for movements that don't follow natural laws. I know it's still out there, and I know that someday the lights will go out again, one by one, and it will be waiting. The scratches on my old front door are still there. The new owners painted over them, but you can see them if you look closely. 4 long marks running from top to bottom. Sometimes I drive past the house during the day, just to remind myself it was real. The street light at Maple and Cedar works fine now. Everything looks normal, but I know better, and so does Max. If you're walking at night and see a broken street light, don't look too closely at what might be standing under it. Don't stop to wonder about strange figures that seem too tall, too still. And if you do see something, run. Run as fast as you can toward light and people and noise. Just remember, you won't see it move, but it will get closer. I never used to believe in ghosts. Hell, I still don't know if I do. But what happened that night in the Oak Ridge Mall parking lot changed everything I thought I knew about reality. I keep replaying it in my mind, trying to make sense of it. Sometimes I wonder if I imagined the whole thing, but those tire marks, they were real. And what came after? Well, let me tell you exactly what happened. It was 11:45 p.m. on a Tuesday in December when I pulled into the empty mall parking lot. The place had closed hours ago. Only the security lights cast pools of yellow light across the vast expanse of asphalt. I was there to pick up Jake, my old college roommate. His car had broken down earlier that day, and he'd asked me to meet him there after his late shift at the hospital. I found a spot near the mall's west entrance, killed the engine, and settled in to wait. The temperature readout on my dashboard showed 28 degrees. My breath formed small clouds in the cold air. I pulled out my phone to text Jake that I'd arrived. That's when I noticed the other car. It sat about 6 spaces away, a dark sedan with its headlights on full beam. The lights cut through the darkness, illuminating nothing in particular, just shining there. I squinted, trying to make out if anyone was inside, but the glare made it impossible to see. I checked my phone again. No response from Jake yet. 11:52 p.m. The car's headlights continued to shine, unwavering. Something about it made my skin prickle. In an empty parking lot this late, you'd expect someone to either be getting out or leaving. But this car just sat there, engine silent, lights blazing. My phone buzzed. Jake. Almost there, 5 minutes. I looked back at the sedan. Same position, same bright headlights. I reached for my own keys, ready to start the engine if needed. The metal felt cold against my palm. A glance at my phone. 11:57 p.m. When I looked up again, the car was gone. Not driving away, not pulling out. Just gone. 1 second it was there, the next, nothing. Empty spaces where it had been. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes. Still nothing. I unbuckled my seatbelt and got out of my car. The cold hit me immediately, seeping through my jacket. My footsteps echoed as I walked toward where the sedan had been. The security lights cast my shadow long across the pavement. That's when I saw them. Tire marks. Fresh ones, dark against the concrete. They started where the car had been parked and extended about 10 feet before stopping abruptly. Not fading away, just stopping, as if the car had been lifted straight up into the air. I stood there staring at those marks, my breath coming faster now. The back of my neck tingled. I spun around, scanning the parking lot. Empty spaces stretched in every direction. No movement. No sound except the hum of the security lights and my own breathing. My phone buzzed again, making me jump. Jake. Here, coming up from south entrance. I hurried back to my car, hands shaking as I unlocked it. Once inside, I locked all the doors and started the engine. The heat came on, but I barely noticed. My eyes kept darting to the rearview mirror, checking the empty spaces where the sedan had been. I saw Jake's figure approaching through the side mirror. He was still in his scrubs from his hospital shift, walking quickly with his hands in his pockets. When he reached my car, I unlocked the passenger door. He slid in, bringing a blast of cold air with him. Thanks for coming out, man. This day has been... He stopped mid-sentence, noticing my expression. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I opened my mouth to tell him, then closed it. How do you even begin to explain something like that? I put the car in reverse. I'll tell you on the way. Let's just get out of here. We pulled out of the parking lot onto Memorial Drive. At this hour, the road was deserted, a straight shot through dark woods for about 5 miles before hitting the highway. The heater was finally warming up the car. Jake was looking at me expectantly. I took a deep breath and started telling him what had happened. As I spoke, I kept checking the rearview mirror out of habit. Nothing but darkness behind us. And then the car just vanished. I finished. But the tire marks were still there. I saw them myself. Jake was quiet for a moment. That's weird. You sure it didn't just drive away when you weren't looking? No engine sound, no movement. It was there 1 second, gone the next. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. I know how it sounds, but the words died in my throat. In my rearview mirror, 2 bright headlights had appeared. They were far behind us, but closing fast. Too fast. My foot pressed harder on the accelerator. The speedometer crept up. 50, 55, 60. What's wrong? Jake turned to look behind us. Holy shit. The headlights were getting closer. I could make out the shape of the sedan now, exactly like the one from the parking lot. It was matching our speed perfectly, maintaining the same distance no matter how fast we went. 65, mummy and amper. 70. The woods rushed by in a dark blur. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. Try to lose it, Jake said, his voice tense. Take the next turn. I saw the upcoming intersection, a sharp right onto Oak Road. At our speed, taking that turn would be dangerous. But those headlights in the mirror, I made my decision. I hit the brakes hard and yanked the wheel right. The tires screamed. Jake grabbed the dashboard. We fishtailed for a moment, then straightened out onto Oak Road. I floored it again, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The road here was narrower, twisting through the woods. Perfect for losing a tail. I checked the mirror. The sedan was still there. Same distance. It had made the turn just as smoothly as we had. Impossible at that speed. This isn't right, Jake muttered. No car could have made that turn like that. My mind raced. Oak Road would eventually loop back to the highway, but that was miles away. We were alone out here, being chased by... What? A ghost car? The thought made my stomach lurch. The sedan's headlights suddenly grew brighter, filling my mirrors with blinding light. I couldn't see anything behind us now, just that intense white glare. "It's getting closer," Jake shouted. I pushed the car harder, taking the curves as fast as I dared. Trees whipped past. The engine whined in protest. 80 Maui now, on a road meant for 35. The light behind us grew even brighter. I could feel heat on the back of my neck, like the headlights were somehow burning through the car. Jake's knuckles were white where he gripped the dashboard. "There's something up ahead." Through the windshield, I saw what he meant. The road widened into a small clearing, and there, off to the side, was an old church. Its white wooden walls gleamed in our headlights. "Pull in," Jake yelled. "Maybe it can't follow us onto holy ground or something." It was a crazy idea, but we were running out of options. I yanked the wheel left towards the church's gravel parking lot. The car bounced violently as we left the pavement. The instant our tires hit the gravel, the light behind us vanished. I slammed on the brakes, sending us into a sliding stop. Gravel pinged against the undercarriage. When we finally came to rest, both Jake and I turned to look behind us. The road was empty. No sedan, no headlights. Just dark woods and the empty road we'd come in on. We sat there for a long moment, engines idling, both breathing hard. The church stood silent beside us, its small steeple reaching up into the night sky. "Did that really just happen?" Jake's voice was barely a whisper. I nodded slowly. My hands were still shaking on the steering wheel. Yeah, it did. We stayed there for almost an hour, waiting to see if the sedan would return. It never did. Finally, we took a different route home, sticking to main roads with other traffic. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't seen the sedan since, but I think about it every day. I've driven past that church a few times in daylight. It looks ordinary enough. Just an old country church with a small graveyard behind it. I've thought about stopping, maybe talking to someone there about what happened, but I haven't worked up the courage yet. Jake and I have discussed it many times, trying to make sense of it. We've come up with dozens of theories, each more unlikely than the last. The only thing we know for sure is what we saw that night. I still don't know if I believe in ghosts, but I believe in what happened to us. The tire marks in that parking lot were real. The chase was real. And somewhere out there on those dark roads at night, there's a sedan with bright headlights that doesn't follow the normal rules of our world. I avoid empty parking lots now, and I never drive alone at night if I can help it. Sometimes when I'm driving home late, I catch myself checking the rearview mirror more often than I should, looking for those headlights, wondering if they're looking for me too. But mostly I try not to think about what would have happened if we hadn't found that church, or what that sedan really wanted. Some questions are better left unanswered. Some mysteries should stay mysterious. I just know that the next time I need to pick someone up late at night, I'm making damn sure they meet me somewhere well lit, with plenty of other cars around, and witnesses, because somewhere out there, there's a dark sedan with bright headlights, and it's waiting, just waiting for someone else to be alone in an empty parking lot at midnight. That's my story. Every word of it true. Make of it what you will. But if you're ever out late at night and see a car with its headlights on, just sitting there in an empty parking lot, don't stick around to see what happens next. Drive away. Drive far away. And whatever you do, don't look back. Because sometimes, the things in your rearview mirror are closer than they appear. I never expected home renovation to turn into this nightmare, but here I am, sitting in my kitchen at 3 a.m. with a baseball bat, listening to footsteps that shouldn't exist climbing my stairs. Again. They're getting louder each night, clearer, closer, and now I can hear the voices. It started 3 weeks ago when Sarah and I finally began the long overdue renovation of our 1940s colonial. The kids needed more space, and the old house desperately needed updating. We'd saved enough to gut the second floor, add a bathroom, and convert the attic into a proper bedroom for Tommy. Simple enough. The first week went according to plan. The contractor stripped everything down to the studs upstairs. Dust everywhere, plastic sheets hanging from the ceiling, the usual renovation chaos. We moved the kids into the finished basement temporarily. Tommy on the pull-out couch, Emma on the air mattress. Sarah and I took the guest room on the first floor. Then came that first night. I woke up around 2 a.m. needing to use the bathroom. As I walked past the stairs to the second floor, I heard it. The distinct sound of footsteps on wooden steps. Slow, deliberate steps. Creak, 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 moving upward. My first thought was that Tommy had gone upstairs, even though we'd explicitly forbidden the kids from entering the construction zone. I flipped on the stairwell light, ready to catch him sneaking around. The steps stopped instantly. I climbed halfway up, checking each stair. Nothing but bare wood treads, construction debris, and plastic sheeting moving slightly in the air from the heating vent. I checked the basement. Both kids sound asleep. Sarah, too, in our temporary bedroom. I wrote it off as old house noises. These places settle and crack and pop, especially during renovations when you're moving weight around and changing the structure. I'm a practical guy, an accountant who deals in hard numbers. There's always a logical explanation. The next night, same thing. This time around 3 a.m. Footsteps climbing, slow and steady. But now I could hear something else. Whispers. Multiple voices, too quiet to make out words, but with that unmistakable cadence of hushed conversation. Again, everything stopped when I turned on the lights. Again, everyone was asleep in their beds. I started keeping a notebook, documenting times and details. The third night, the footsteps reached the 8th step before stopping. Fourth night, the 10th step. The voices grew slightly louder each time, though still maddeningly unclear. Like listening to a conversation through a thick wall, you can hear the rise and fall of speech but can't quite grasp the words. By the end of the first week, I hadn't slept more than a few hours each night. I installed a motion-activated camera on the stairs. Nothing showed up in the recordings except occasional bits of dust and plastic sheeting moving in the air currents. But the footsteps kept climbing higher, the voices growing clearer. Sarah noticed my exhaustion. "You look terrible," she said over breakfast. "Are you stressed about the renovation costs?" I couldn't tell her. How do you tell your rational, level-headed wife that you're losing sleep over phantom footsteps? That you spend your nights clutching a baseball bat, listening to invisible people climb your stairs? Instead, I blamed work stress and started drinking coffee by the pot. I took to sitting in the kitchen each night, waiting. The footsteps always came. By the second week, they were reaching the top of the stairs. The voices had grown clear enough that I could sometimes catch individual words. "Careful here. Almost there. Help them up." They sounded normal. Conversational. Like a group of people helping each other climb stairs in the dark. Nothing sinister or ghostly about the tone, and somehow that made it worse. I started researching the house's history. The county records showed nothing remarkable. Built in 1947 for a young family, the Petersons. Sold in 1963 to the Wilsons. Then the Jacksons in 1985. We bought it from the Jacksons' estate in 2019. No deaths recorded on the property. No tragic events. Just a normal suburban house passing between normal families. But the footsteps kept climbing. The voices kept talking. And now they didn't always stop when I turned on the lights. Last night was the worst so far. I was in my usual spot in the kitchen when it started, 3:17 a.m. according to my notebook. The first step creaked, then the second. The familiar whispers began. "Watch your step here. The nail's sticking up. Give me your hand." I gripped my baseball bat tighter, pulse pounding in my ears. They were clearer than ever. Multiple voices, men and women, young and old, all speaking in those helpful, ordinary tones. The footsteps reached the 8th step. Then something changed. A new voice, young, probably a child. "Why do we have to go up there?" An older voice, gentle but firm. You know why. We all have to. Just a few more steps. That's when I noticed the temperature dropping. The kitchen thermometer showed 72 degrees, but I could see my breath. The footsteps reached the 12th step, 13th, 14th. A different voice, elderly, shaky. I can't do this again. You have to. We all do. Every night until... The voice trailed off. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs, and for the first time they didn't stop. I heard them moving across the second floor landing. Multiple sets of feet shuffling through construction debris. My body moved before my brain could stop it. I grabbed my flashlight and charged up the stairs, bat ready. The beam cut through the plastic sheeting, casting wild shadows. The footsteps moved toward the attic stairs. Clear as day, I heard them on the exposed plywood floor. That's when I saw the footprints appearing in the dust. Not all at once, but one by one, as if invisible feet were walking. Small ones, child-sized, large work boots, narrow women's shoes. All moving toward the attic stairs. I followed. What else could I do? I'd spent 2 weeks listening to these footsteps. I needed to know. The attic stairs were temporary, just a wooden ladder propped against the opening. The footprints went right up to it, then stopped. The voices were all around me now, clear as if the speakers were standing right beside me. Time to go up. Don't be afraid. We all have to. Every night until it's done. Until they're all up. The ladder creaked. Not from my weight. I was still frozen at the bottom. Something was climbing it. The dust on the rungs shifted under invisible feet. That's when I finally ran. Back down to the kitchen. Back to my chair. Back to writing in this notebook with shaking hands. It's 4:45 a.m. now. The footsteps and voices have stopped for the night, but I know they'll be back. They always come back. And they're leaving the stairs now, moving through the house. Getting closer. Sarah keeps asking what's wrong with me. The contractors comment on how tired I look. Tommy complains about strange noises keeping him awake. Even Emma, usually such a sound sleeper, says she hears people talking at night. I should tell Sarah everything. Should show her my notebook full of times and details. Should show her the videos of dust shifting under phantom feet. But what if she doesn't believe me? What if she thinks I'm cracking under the stress? What if she takes the kids and leaves? So I sit here every night, listening to the footsteps climb, listening to the voices grow clearer, watching the temperature drop and the dust shift and feeling the presence of something that shouldn't be here, something that's no longer content with just climbing the stairs. The renovation is almost done. The contractors say another week, maybe 2, but I don't think we have that long. The voices said it themselves. Every night until it's done. Until what's done? Until they reach whatever goal they're climbing toward? Until they get what they want? Or until they get who they want? I heard Emma crying in the basement last night. Not from fear or a bad dream. She was talking in her sleep. I don't want to climb the stairs. Please don't make me climb the stairs. Tommy's been sleepwalking. 3 times this week I've caught him standing at the bottom of the stairs, staring up into the darkness. When I wake him, he never remembers. And Sarah? Yesterday morning I found her looking up the attic ladder, her coffee getting cold in her hands. When I asked what she was doing, she said, I thought I heard someone calling me, asking me to come up. So now I sit here with my baseball bat and my flashlight and my notebook full of details that don't make sense. The renovation is almost finished. The new floors are in, the walls are up, the paint is drying. Soon we'll move back upstairs and try to live a normal life in this house. But I know the footsteps will keep coming. The voices will keep calling. And one of these nights they won't just stop at the top of the stairs. They'll keep going, keep calling, keep asking us to climb up into whatever waits in the darkness above. I hear them starting now. First step. Second step. The voices are beginning their nightly whispers, but tonight they're different. Tonight they're calling a name. My name. I should run. Should grab my family and leave this house forever. But my feet won't move. Because under the fear, under the exhaustion, under the rational mind screaming that none of this is possible, there's a small, quiet part of me that wants to answer, that needs to know what's up there, that understands, somehow, that we all have to climb those stairs eventually. The footsteps are getting closer, the voices are getting clearer, and tonight I think I'm finally going to find out where they lead. The security cameras caught me entering the Riverside Corporate Center at 8:47 p.m. I know this because I watched the footage later, over and over, trying to make sense of what happened that night. The timestamp in the corner showed me walking through those glass doors, briefcase in hand, heading to my office on the 23rd floor to grab the contract I'd forgotten. I never made it there. I worked too much. That's what Sarah always said before she left. Tonight proved her right, I guess. The cleaning crew had already finished their rounds, leaving behind that sharp chemical smell that always made my nose itch. My footsteps echoed off the marble floors of the lobby. The night guard, Mike, wasn't at his desk, probably doing his rounds or in the bathroom. I didn't wait for him. I had my key card, and I just needed to grab that one document. The lobby lights were dimmed to their nighttime setting. A few emergency exit signs cast their red glow across the walls. My shoes clicked against the floor as I walked to the bank of elevators. 4 identical steel doors faced me. I pressed the up button, and the third elevator from the left dinged immediately. The door slid open with that soft hydraulic whoosh. I stepped in and hit 23. The elevator smelled like pine cleaner and something else. Maybe someone's leftover lunch. The doors closed, and I watched my reflection in the polished steel. Dark circles under my eyes. Hair getting gray at the temples. Tie loose after 14 hours at the office. The standard uniform of a workaholic divorce lawyer. The display showed floor 4, 5, 6. When I felt it, you know that sensation when someone's standing right behind you? The hair on the back of your neck stands up. Your skin gets tight. Your body knows someone's there before your brain does. That's what hit me between floors 6 and 7. I didn't turn around. Instead, I looked at the reflection in the elevator doors. There was someone standing behind me, slightly to my left. A dark figure, maybe 6 feet tall, wearing what looked like a suit. Just standing there, perfectly still. But when I turned my head, nothing. Empty elevator. Just me and my briefcase and the hum of the machinery carrying me upward. I blinked hard and looked back at the reflection. The figure was still there. Dark suit, standing straight, unmoving. But when I whipped around, the elevator was empty. My heart started hammering against my ribs. Sweat broke out on my forehead. I pressed myself into the corner, trying to watch both the empty space behind me and the reflection showing something that couldn't be there. Floor 12. The figure in the reflection hadn't moved. I could make out more details now. Male, broad-shouldered, head slightly bowed. The suit was black, or maybe dark navy. His hands hung at his sides. But no matter how I turned or where I looked in the actual elevator, I was alone. My fingers fumbled for the button panel. I needed to get out. Now. But as I reached for the next floor's button, the temperature dropped. The air turned ice cold, like someone had opened a freezer right next to my face. My breath came out in visible puffs. Floor 15. I jabbed at the button for 16, repeatedly, my finger getting more frantic with each press. The elevator didn't slow down. The digital display kept climbing. 16, 17, 18. In the reflection, the figure's head began to rise. Slowly, degree by degree, it lifted its face toward me. I didn't want to see it. I shut my eyes tight, but I could feel that presence getting stronger. The cold intensified until my teeth started chattering. When I opened my eyes, the figure's face was fully visible in the reflection. Pale skin, black holes where eyes should be. A mouth stretched too wide, filled with nothing but darkness. But the elevator behind me remained empty. I screamed. The sound bounced off the walls, hurting my own ears. I dropped my briefcase and pounded on the door, yelling for help. The elevator kept rising. 19, 20, 21. The presence moved closer in the reflection. 2 steps forward, I could see it right behind me now, those empty eye sockets fixed on my face in the mirrored surface. The cold had become unbearable. My fingers were going numb. Each breath hurt my lungs. Floor 22. 1 more to go. I had to get out, had to escape. In the reflection, a pale hand began to rise toward my shoulder. I could see every detail: long fingers, gray-tinged skin, nails that looked black in the fluorescent light. But I felt nothing on my actual shoulder, just that bone-deep cold. The elevator dinged. Floor 23. The doors started to open, moving agonizingly slowly. I didn't wait for them to finish. I shoved my body through the gap as soon as it was wide enough, leaving my briefcase behind. I ran down the dark hallway, my dress shoes slipping on the polished floor. I hit the exit door at full speed, taking the stairs 2 at a time, nearly falling multiple times. 23 floors down, my legs burning, lungs on fire. I burst out of the stairwell into the lobby. Mike was back at his desk. He jumped up when he saw me, a sweating, panting mess in a wrinkled suit. "Mr. Thompson, you okay?" I couldn't speak. Just shook my head and pointed at the elevators. Mike grabbed his flashlight and walked over to check. The 3rd elevator from the left dinged. The doors opened. My briefcase sat in the middle of the empty car. Mike helped me check the security footage. We watched me enter the building, saw me get in the elevator. The camera inside showed me standing alone, but acting strange, pressing myself into the corner, screaming at nothing, pounding on the doors. The temperature readout in the corner of the screen showed a steady drop from 72 degrees to 34 degrees during my ride-up. I quit my job the next day, left corporate law altogether. Now I work from home, handling simple wills and real estate contracts. I take the stairs everywhere I go. Sometimes I dream about that elevator ride, the cold, the reflection, that reaching hand. But mostly, I try not to think about it. Yesterday, though, something happened that brought it all back. I was sorting through old emails and found one from the building management, dated 2 weeks before my elevator incident. It was a mass email I'd ignored at the time, something about the history of the building for its 50th anniversary. There was a paragraph about a suicide in 1989. A partner at another law firm working late one night had jumped down the elevator shaft. They found him in his suit at the bottom of the 3rd shaft from the left. I close my laptop when it gets dark now. I don't work late anymore. Sometimes I catch movement in windows or mirrors out of the corner of my eye, but I never look at reflections directly anymore. I'm afraid of what might be looking back. That night changed everything I thought I knew about the world, about what's possible and what's not, about what might be watching us from just on the other side of every reflective surface. Sometimes I wonder if that thing in the elevator was really the dead lawyer, or if it just wore his shape, used his story to manifest itself. Or maybe there are things that live in mirrors and polished steel, things that usually just watch but sometimes reach out to those of us who work too late, who spend too many hours in empty buildings where the barriers between their world and ours grow thin. I don't know. I don't want to know. All I know is what I saw in that elevator and what I didn't see when I turned around. All I know is the cold and the fear and the way that pale hand reached for me in the reflection. All I know is that I'm never setting foot in that building again, and I keep every mirror in my house covered after sunset. But sometimes late at night I swear I can feel that presence again, that prickle on the back of my neck, that drop in temperature, that certainty that something is standing right behind me. And every time I force myself to keep looking straight ahead, because I know now, whatever you do, don't look at the reflection. Don't look at what's standing there beside you. Don't look at its face. Just keep your eyes forward and pray the doors open soon. I need to tell you what happened to me last week on Rural Road 23. I've told the police, but they don't believe me. My wife thinks I should see a therapist. My kids won't ride in the car with me anymore. but I know what I saw. It was Thursday night, around 9:30 p.m. I was driving home from a late meeting at the construction site where I'm the foreman. We're building a new warehouse out past the Jenkins farm, and the project's behind schedule. The client had been breathing down my neck all day about deadlines. The road was empty. No streetlights out there, just my headlights cutting through the darkness. Fields on both sides, corn on the right, soybeans on the left. The harvest was done, leaving only brown stalks under the moon. My truck's dashboard clock showed 9:37 p.m. when I first noticed it. At first, I thought it was just another shadow from the clouds moving across the fields. We get that a lot out here. The moon plays tricks when clouds pass in front of it. But this shadow was different. It was bigger than any cloud shadow I'd ever seen, and it moved wrong. I slowed down from 55 to about 40, squinting through the windshield. The shadow was maybe 100 yards away, moving across the soybean field. It had to be at least 30 feet across, a dark blob sliding over the ground. My first thought was that it must be a herd of deer crossing the field together, their shadows merging into one big mass. But deer don't move like that. This thing flowed across the ground like spilled oil, and it was heading toward the road. I took my foot off the gas, letting the truck slow to 30. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. The shadow reached the drainage ditch beside the road and didn't stop. It oozed up the embankment, moving faster now. "What the hell?" I said out loud. My voice sounded weird in the quiet cab. The shadow hit the asphalt right behind my truck. In my rearview mirror, I could see it spreading across both lanes, completely black. Not dark gray like a normal shadow. This was pure black, like someone had cut a hole in the world. I hit the gas. The truck's engine roared as I accelerated to 65, then 70. The shadow kept pace, staying right behind me. It made no sound. There was no wind, no rustling in the fields, nothing but my engine and my breathing. The next curve was coming up, about a quarter mile ahead. I grabbed my phone from the cup holder, trying to open the camera without taking my eyes off the road. The phone slipped from my sweaty fingers and fell between the seats. Shit. I reached down, groping for it. When I looked back up, the shadow had gotten closer. It was maybe 20 feet behind my back bumper now. I pushed the truck to 80, taking the curve faster than I should have. The tires squealed. I felt the back end start to slide, but I managed to keep it on the road. The shadow flowed around the curve like it was on rails, still gaining on me. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Sweat ran down my back, soaking my shirt. I couldn't stop looking in the rearview mirror. The shadow was 10 feet behind me now. Close enough that I could see it wasn't just black. There were shapes moving inside it, like darker shadows within the shadow. They writhed and twisted, but I couldn't make out what they were. The turnoff for Old Mill Road was just ahead. I cranked the wheel hard, barely slowing down. The truck tilted up on two wheels for a second before slamming back down. The shadow followed, flowing across the pavement like water. Old Mill Road is even darker than rural Route 23. No houses, no farms, just woods on both sides. The trees made it impossible to see the moon. My headlights showed empty road ahead and thick forest pressing in from both sides. I checked the mirror again. The shadow was 5 feet behind me now. Close enough that I could feel something coming from it. Not heat or cold, but a kind of pressure in the air. My ears popped like they do when you drive up a mountain. The road straightened out ahead. I had the gas pedal pressed all the way to the floor, but the shadow kept getting closer. 4 feet, 3 feet, 2 feet. The shapes inside it were clearer now. They looked like hands reaching up through black water, grabbing at nothing. My headlights started to flicker. The dashboard lights dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again. The radio came on by itself, blasting static. I hit the power button, but it wouldn't turn off. The static got louder, with something underneath it that sounded almost like voices. The shadow was right at my back bumper. I could see it starting to creep up the sides of the truck in my side mirrors. The voices in the static were clearer now. They weren't speaking English or any language I recognized. The sound made my teeth hurt. The truck's engine started to sputter. The speedometer needle dropped. 70, 60, 50. I pumped the gas pedal, but nothing happened. The engine coughed once, twice, then died completely. I coasted to a stop in the middle of the road. The headlights went out. The static on the radio cut off. Everything was silent. The shadow flowed around both sides of the truck, meeting in front of the hood. It covered the entire road now, a pool of absolute darkness. I couldn't see the pavement through it. The shapes inside it were moving faster, more violently. The hands reached up toward the truck's grill. I sat there with my hands locked on the steering wheel, unable to move. My breath came in short gasps that seemed impossibly loud in the silence. Sweat dripped into my eyes, but I couldn't blink. The shadow started to climb up the hood. I grabbed the door handle and threw myself out of the truck. I hit the ground hard, skinning my palms on the asphalt. The shadow was flowing up the windshield now, covering the whole front of the truck. I scrambled to my feet and ran. I didn't know which direction I was going. I couldn't see anything except the darkness behind me. My feet pounded on the pavement as I sprinted blindly into the night. Something grabbed my ankle. I fell forward, catching myself with my already scraped hands. Cold pressure wrapped around my leg, pulling me backward. I kicked out with my other foot but hit nothing solid. The pressure kept pulling. I rolled onto my back. The shadow had caught up to me, a wall of darkness rising up from the road. The hands inside it were reaching for me. Dozens of them, hundreds, made of deeper shadow. They grabbed at my legs, my arms, my clothes. I screamed. The sound echoed off the trees and came back distorted, like it was being played backward. The hands pulled harder. I could feel myself sliding across the pavement toward the massive shadow. My right hand hit something metal, a guardrail. I grabbed it with both hands, holding on as tight as I could. The shadow pulled harder. My shoulders felt like they were going to pop out of their sockets. Then I heard it. A deep thrumming sound getting closer. Headlights appeared around the curve behind me, bright against the darkness. A truck's horn blared. The shadow released me so suddenly I slammed back against the guardrail. The hands withdrew into the mass of darkness. The whole thing flowed backward, away from the approaching headlights. The other truck got closer, its high beams cutting through the night. The shadow retreated faster, pulling back across the road. It reached the trees on the far side and seemed to compress itself, getting smaller and denser. The truck was almost to me now. I could see it was an 18-wheeler, its chrome grille gleaming. The shadow contracted into a tight ball of darkness, then shot straight up into the air like a rocket. It disappeared into the trees, leaving nothing but normal night behind. The truck slowed as it approached. I was still sitting on the ground, holding the guardrail with shaking hands. The driver pulled onto the shoulder and stopped. His door opened and work boots hit the pavement. "You okay there, buddy?" A flashlight beam hit me in the face. I squinted against the light. "Your truck broke down or something?" I looked back at my truck. It was sitting in the middle of the road, exactly where I'd left it. No sign of the shadow anywhere. Yeah, something like that. My voice was hoarse from screaming. The truck driver, a big guy with a gray beard and a John Deere cap, helped me up. My legs felt like rubber bands. "Let's take a look at it," he said, walking toward my truck. "I'm pretty good with engines." He tried the key. The truck started right up like nothing had happened. All the lights worked. The radio played normal country music when he turned it on. "Huh," he said. "Seems fine to me. Maybe just a temporary glitch in the electrical system." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. He offered to follow me home to make sure I didn't have any more trouble. I accepted. We drove the rest of the way with his truck right behind mine, his headlights steady in my mirrors. When I got home, I thanked him and watched his taillights disappear down the road. Then I went inside and poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey. My hands were still shaking. I told my wife what happened. She listened quietly, then suggested I was working too hard, maybe having stress-induced hallucinations. When I insisted it was real, she made me promise to talk to someone about it. I called the police the next morning. They sent a car out to check the road but found nothing unusual. No marks on the pavement, no damage to the guardrail where I'd grabbed it, nothing in the woods. They wrote it off as fatigue or an overactive imagination. But I know what I saw. I drive a different route home now, even though it takes an extra 45 minutes. I installed extra lights on my truck, high-powered LED bars on the roof and sides. I keep my phone in a holder where I can reach it easily, and I watch the shadows in my rearview mirror, all of them, even the normal ones. I've started noticing things I didn't before, like how the shadows under trees sometimes seem deeper than they should be, how they sometimes move when there's no wind, how they sometimes have shapes in them that almost look like hands. I haven't seen the big shadow again. Not yet. But I know it's out there somewhere, waiting, moving across empty fields in the dark, following other cars down lonely roads. So if you're driving at night and you see something dark moving in your mirror, something that flows like water but isn't water, something with shapes inside it that reach and grab, don't slow down, don't stop. And whatever you do, don't let your lights go out, because the shadow remembers. And next time there might not be another truck coming to save you. I still drive that route sometimes, during the day. The road looks normal in sunlight. But when I pass the spot where it happened, my hands get sweaty on the steering wheel. My heart beats faster, and I watch the shadows under the trees, looking for movement, for shapes, for hands reaching up through the darkness. They're still there. I can feel them watching, waiting for night to fall, waiting for someone else to drive down that dark road alone. I've thought about moving away, finding a new job somewhere else, but I know it wouldn't matter. The shadow isn't tied to that road or those woods or that stretch of rural highway. It can go anywhere, it can follow anyone. All we can do is keep our lights on, keep moving, and hope that when it finds us again, there will be someone else coming around the curve, headlights blazing, horn blaring, to drive it back into the darkness where it came from. But sometimes late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder about that truck driver who saved me. I never got his name. Never saw him again. And I wonder, was he real? Or was he something else? Something that decided, for whatever reason, that it wasn't my time to be taken? I don't know. I'll probably never know. All I know is what I saw that night on rural Road 23. All I know is what followed me through the darkness. And all I know is that somewhere out there, in the shadows between streetlights and stars, it's still moving, still flowing, still reaching with those dark hands, still waiting. For you, for me, for anyone who drives alone at night thinking they're safe inside their car protected by steel and glass and electricity, thinking the darkness can't touch them, but it can, it will. And when it does, all you can do is run. Run toward the light. Run toward other people. Run toward anything that might drive it back. Because the shadow is patient. The shadow is persistent. And the shadow remembers. I know this because I survived. But sometimes, in my darkest moments, I wonder if that's what it wanted all along. For me to survive. For me to tell this story. For me to warn others about what's out there in the darkness. Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe I just got lucky. Maybe the truck driver was just a truck driver and the shadow was just whatever it was. Maybe I'll never see it again. But I don't believe that. Not really. Because every night when I look out my window at the shadows under the streetlight, I see them move. Just a little. Just enough to remind me. It's still out there. And it's not alone. So keep your lights on. Watch your mirrors. And if you see something dark moving across an empty field some night, something big and flowing and wrong, don't slow down. Don't stop. Just drive. Drive as fast as you can. Drive toward the light. Drive toward other people. Drive like your life depends on it. Because it does. I shouldn't have bought that lamp. The sign on the antique shop's window said, "Going out of business, everything must go." Maybe that should have been my first warning. But I went in anyway, looking for something to brighten up my bedroom. Now I haven't slept properly in weeks, and I'm starting to think I'm losing my mind. Or maybe I'm not crazy at all, and that's even worse. The shop smelled like dust and old wood. Shelves crammed with junk stretched from floor to ceiling. The owner, a thin guy with thick glasses, followed me around while I looked. He kept wringing his hands and glancing at the door like he couldn't wait to get rid of everything and leave. That's when I saw it. The lamp sat on a shelf between some old books and a broken clock. It wasn't anything special, just a brass table lamp with a cream-colored shade. But something about it caught my eye. The brass had that soft, worn patina that only comes from decades of handling. The shade looked original, yellowed but intact. "How much?" I asked. The owner's face twitched. $25. He named the price too quickly, like he was desperate to sell it. I should have asked why it was so cheap. I should have wondered why he wouldn't meet my eyes when he took my money, but I didn't. I just took the lamp home and put it on my bedside table. The first few nights were fine. The lamp worked perfectly. Warm light, perfect for reading before bed. I even congratulated myself on finding such a good deal. Then the third night came. I woke up suddenly at 3 a.m. The lamp was flashing. On, off, on, off, on, off. 3 times exactly. My first thought was power surge, but when I reached to check the cord, I realized it wasn't even plugged in. I sat there in the dark, heart pounding. The rational part of my brain said there had to be an explanation. Maybe the bulb was storing residual electricity somehow. Maybe I was still half asleep and imagined it. I plugged the lamp back in, turned it on and off a few times. Nothing unusual happened. The next night, same thing. 3 a.m. 3 flashes, unplugged. This time I was ready. I grabbed my phone to record it, but of course nothing happened while I was filming. As soon as I put the phone down, frustrated, the lamp flashed again, 3 times, like it was mocking me. I started sleeping badly. Every night I'd lie awake waiting for 3 a.m. Sometimes I'd doze off and snap awake just in time to see the flashes. Sometimes I'd stay up and watch the minutes tick by on my phone. The lamp never failed to perform its little show. A week in, things got worse. I was half asleep when the familiar flashes started. But this time, when the light went dark after the third flash, I saw something in the corner of my room. A shadow, darker than the darkness around it. A human shape, but wrong somehow. Too tall, too thin, its proportions slightly off. I hit the lamp switch so fast I almost knocked it over. Light flooded the room. The corner was empty. Just my laundry hamper and some clothes I'd thrown over it. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grip the switch. I kept the lamp on for the rest of the night. When morning came, I took it apart. Checked every inch of wiring, the socket, the switch. Nothing unusual. I even took it to an electrician. He said it was an ordinary lamp, probably from the 1950s. Nothing special about it at all. That night, I put the lamp in the living room. At 3 a.m., I woke up to my bedroom overhead, light flashing. 3 times, and there was the figure again, this time by my closet. Taller than before, its head almost touching the ceiling. I couldn't see any features, just that wrong silhouette against the darkness. I slapped the light switch by my bed. Empty room. But I swear I heard something move just before the light came on. A soft sliding sound like bare feet on carpet. The next day I took the lamp back to the antique shop. The windows were dark, paper signs covering the glass. A smaller sign on the door, closed permanently. No returns. I wasn't surprised. I thought about throwing the lamp away. But something stopped me. What if someone else found it? What if whatever was happening just followed me anyway? At least with the lamp I had some control. I knew when it would happen. So I kept it, developed a routine. Lamp on the bedside table, awake at 3 a.m. Watch the flashes, then keep my hand on the switch, ready, because the figure kept appearing, and it kept getting closer. 2 weeks in, it was at the foot of my bed. I could see it better now. The proportions weren't just wrong, they were impossible. Arms too long, fingers like branches. Its head tilted at an angle that would snap a human neck. I started talking to it, not because I expected an answer, but because the silence was driving me crazy. "What do you want?" I'd ask. Or "Why me?" Or sometimes just, "Please leave me alone." No response, just that silent presence in the darkness. Sometimes I thought I could see it move, just slightly, like it was breathing, but always so still when I stared directly at it. The sleep deprivation started affecting my work. I'd doze off at my desk, jerk awake thinking I saw that figure in the corner of my office. My co-workers noticed, started asking if I was okay, saying I looked sick. I made up excuses about insomnia, stress, anything but the truth. One night, I decided to film the whole thing, set up my phone, force myself to stay awake. 3 a.m. came. The lamp flashed, and there it was, clearer than ever in the phone's night vision mode. A figure that seemed to be made of darkness itself, standing impossibly tall. But when I played the video back, nothing. Just an empty room and the lamp flashing on its own. That's when it started getting aggressive. One night after the flashes, I heard that sliding sound again, closer. The figure was right beside my bed. I could feel the cold radiating from it, like standing next to an open freezer. My hand was on the switch, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It leaned down. I still couldn't see a face, just that dark void where a head should be. But I knew it was looking at me. The cold got more intense. My fingers went numb on the switch. Then I felt something touch my shoulder. A hand, but not a hand. Long, cold fingers that seemed to sink right through my skin. I screamed and hit the switch. Light flooded the room. Empty. But my shoulder was ice cold, and there were red marks where the fingers had been. 5 perfectly straight lines, like someone had drawn them with a ruler. The next day, I bought every lamp and flashlight I could find. Set them up around my room, all pointing at different corners. Extension cords everywhere. I must have looked crazy, but I didn't care. That night at 3 a.m., every single light in my room flashed 3 times. Even the ones that weren't plugged in. Even my phone's flashlight. When the darkness came back, the figure was there. But now there were more of them. One in every corner. All impossibly tall, all wrong in their own unique ways. All facing me. I sat paralyzed, hand frozen on the switch. The cold was overwhelming. I could see my breath in the air. The figures began to move, sliding across the floor without walking, closing in. The one from the lamp reached me first. Its hand stretched out, longer and longer, fingers unfurling like petals. I felt that cold touch on my face this time. Something in me snapped. I grabbed the lamp and threw it as hard as I could. It shattered against the wall in a shower of brass and glass. The bulb exploded with a pop. Instantly, every figure vanished. The cold disappeared. My room was just my room again, now with a broken lamp on the floor. I spent the rest of the night cleaning up the pieces. Cut my fingers a few times on the glass, but I didn't care. I had to get rid of every single piece. Wrapped it all in newspaper, drove to different dumpsters around town to dispose of it. Probably overkill, but I wasn't taking any chances. That was 3 days ago. No more flashing lights, no more figures. But I still wake up at 3 a.m. every night, drenched in sweat. And sometimes, just as I'm falling asleep, I swear I can feel cold fingers on my shoulder. Last night, I drove past the antique shop. The windows were clean, the signs gone. A new store was moving in. As I waited at the red light, I saw something in the window that made my blood freeze. A brass table lamp with a cream-colored shade, sitting right in the front display. The light turned green, and I drove away as fast as I could. But I knew what I had to do. Tomorrow I'm going back to that shop. I have to buy that lamp. Not because I want to, but because I know what will happen if someone else does. Maybe this is what it wants. Maybe this is why it chose me. Or maybe I really am crazy. Maybe I'll walk into that store and find out it's just an ordinary lamp. But I don't think so. Because right now, as I'm writing this, it's 2:59 a.m. And even though there's no lamp in my room, I can feel the temperature dropping. 3 minutes until I find out if destroying the lamp really solved anything. 3 minutes until I know if the figures are gone for good. 2 minutes now. 1. The lights are starting to flicker. I never should have bought that mirror. That's what I keep telling myself as I sit here in my car, parked outside my house, too scared to go back inside. My hands are shaking so bad I can barely type this on my phone. I need to get this down while it's fresh, while I can still remember every detail of what happened. Maybe someone will read this and understand. Or maybe they'll just think I'm crazy. I don't care anymore. I just need to tell someone. It started 3 days ago. I was walking past Randy's pawn shop on 4th Street, the one next to the closed-down laundromat. I wasn't planning to go in. I was just killing time before meeting my brother for lunch. But something in the window caught my eye. This huge antique mirror with an ornate wooden frame. Dark wood, carved with these intricate geometric patterns. The price tag said $85, which seemed way too cheap for something that size and quality. I went inside. The shop smelled like old cigarettes and furniture polish. Randy was behind the counter watching some game show on a tiny TV. He barely looked up when I asked about the mirror. "Guy brought it in last week," he said, still staring at the TV. "Said he was cleaning out his grandma's house after she died, needed quick cash." I should have asked more questions. Should have wondered why someone would let go of such a beautiful piece for so little. But I didn't. I just handed over my credit card and arranged to pick it up later with my truck. Getting it home was a pain in the ass. The thing was heavier than it looked, and I live alone in a 2-story house. I managed to drag it upstairs to my bedroom, scraping my knuckles raw in the process. Spent 20 minutes trying different spots on the wall before I found the perfect place, opposite my bed, where the morning light would hit it. That first night, everything seemed normal. I got ready for bed like usual, brushed my teeth, changed into sweats and a t-shirt, set my alarm. I remember glancing at the mirror as I walked past, thinking how good it looked there, how it made the room feel bigger, more complete. I woke up around 3 a.m. needing to use the bathroom. I was groggy, barely awake. On my way back to bed, I caught my reflection in the mirror. In my half-asleep state, something seemed off, but I couldn't place what. Like when you walk into a room and know someone's moved something, but you can't tell what's different. I stepped closer to the mirror, rubbing my eyes. That's when I noticed it. The reflection showed my nightstand with a glass of water on it. But I hadn't brought any water upstairs. I turned to look at the actual nightstand, empty. When I looked back at the mirror, the glass was still there in the reflection. My heart started beating faster. I told myself I was just tired, seeing things. I got back in bed, pulled the covers up to my chin, and kept my eyes fixed on the ceiling until I fell asleep. The next morning, I convinced myself it had been a dream. The mirror looked completely normal in the daylight. I got dressed for work, checking my reflection like I always do. Everything matched exactly. Me adjusting my tie, smoothing down my hair, grabbing my keys from the dresser. But that night, it happened again. I was getting ready for bed, going through my normal routine. I glanced in the mirror while putting on my watch and froze. There was someone standing behind me in the reflection. A woman, maybe in her 60s, wearing a dark blue dress. She was just standing there a few feet behind my right shoulder, staring at me with this blank expression. I spun around so fast I almost fell over. The bedroom was empty. When I looked back at the mirror, she was gone. My hands were shaking. Sweat was running down my back. I walked over and touched the mirror's surface. It felt cool and solid, completely normal. I checked behind it, half expecting to find something. Speakers, a hidden screen, I don't know what. But it was just a mirror, mounted on my wall. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I started to drift off, I'd jerk awake, convinced I could feel someone watching me. I kept my back to the mirror. Around dawn, I finally fell into an uneasy sleep. The next day at work, I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about what I'd seen. I told myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe the mirror was positioned at an odd angle, catching reflections from outside. Maybe the old wood was warping, distorting the image. Maybe I was just stressed, working too hard, seeing things that weren't there. I almost convinced myself. Then I came home. The differences were subtle at first. In the mirror, my bedspread was slightly rumpled while the real bed was perfectly made. A book appeared on my dresser in the reflection, but wasn't there in reality. Small things. Things I could almost convince myself I was imagining. Then I saw her again. The same woman, but closer this time. She was standing right behind me, so close I should have felt her breath on my neck. In the reflection, she slowly raised her hand, reaching for my shoulder. I could see every detail. Her age-spotted skin, the thin gold wedding band on her finger, the chipped red polish on her nails. I jerked away from the mirror, heart pounding. The room was empty. Of course it was empty. I ran downstairs and poured myself a drink, then another. When I finally got up the nerve to go back upstairs, I covered the mirror with a sheet. I slept on the couch that night, TV on for background noise. But I couldn't stop thinking about what was happening upstairs. Was she still there, behind that sheet? Was she waiting for me? This morning I made myself go back up. I approached the mirror slowly and pulled off the sheet. Everything looked normal at first. Just my reflection, pale and tired, dark circles under my eyes. Then I noticed something in the reflected room behind me was different. The door was closed in the reflection, but open in reality. As I watched, it slowly began to open wider in the mirror. I saw a hand grip the edge of the door. Long fingers, red nail polish. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The door swung open fully and there she was, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her, I could see more figures emerging from the darkness of the hallway. Shadowy shapes, dozens of them, all moving toward me with slow, deliberate steps. In the real room, the door didn't move. The hallway remained empty. But in the mirror, they kept coming. I could see their faces now. Men, women, children, all with the same blank expression, all reaching out with grasping hands. I ran, grabbed my keys and phone and got out of there. That's where I am now, sitting in my car, trying to make sense of what's happening. My hands have finally stopped shaking enough to type. I keep thinking about what Randy said about the mirror coming from a dead woman's house. I want to go back to the pawn shop, demand answers. But it's Sunday. The shop is closed. I don't know what to do. I can't go back in that house. Not with that thing hanging on my wall. But I can't leave it there either. What if someone else finds it? What if a real estate agent brings potential buyers through the house and they see what I saw? What if a child? My phone battery is getting low. The sun is starting to set. I've been sitting here for hours watching my house, trying to work up the courage to go back inside. I need to deal with this. Need to get that mirror out of there somehow. I have a sledgehammer in the garage. Maybe if I break it. But what if that makes things worse? What if breaking the mirror releases whatever is trapped inside? What if it lets them cross over completely? Someone's walking their dog past my car. They're giving me strange looks. I must look crazy sitting here all day staring at my own house. The streetlights are coming on. Soon it will be dark. I can see my bedroom window from here. Is it my imagination? Or did something just move behind the curtains? I'm going back in. I have to. I can't sit here forever. I'm going to grab the sledgehammer from the garage, run upstairs, and smash that thing before whatever's in there can reach me. If you're reading this and I don't update later, well, at least you'll know what happened. Wait, something's wrong. The bedroom light just turned on. I can see it through the window, but I'm sitting here in my car. I have the only key. The curtain is moving. Someone is standing at my bedroom window. She's wearing a dark blue dress. She's looking right at me. She's smiling. I'm starting the car. I don't know where I'm going, but I can't stay here. Can't look away from that window. From her face. From that smile. She's waving now. I need to go. If you're reading this, stay away from Randy's pawn shop. Stay away from old mirrors. Stay away from my house. And whatever you do, don't look too closely at your own reflection. You never know who might be looking back. Message sent from iPhone 11:47 p.m. Location services disabled. Battery level 2%. Last seen 3 days ago. I used to think I was a rational person. That changed 3 weeks ago. Now I sit in this motel room typing this on my laptop, trying to make sense of what happened. My hands still shake when I think about it. I need to write it down. Maybe someone will believe me. Maybe someone can explain it. It started on July 15th. The air conditioning in my apartment had been broken for 2 days, and the maintenance guy couldn't come until the weekend. The temperature hit 95 degrees that day, and my third-floor apartment felt like an oven. I stripped down to my boxers, opened all the windows, and set up 3 fans, but it didn't help much. The air just sat there, thick and heavy. I couldn't sleep. At 1:45 a.m., I was still lying on top of my sheets, sweating. The noise from the fans filled the room with a constant drone. My bedroom window was wide open, the thin curtain moving slightly in what little breeze managed to reach the 3rd floor. That's when I heard it. 3 distinct knocks on the glass. At first I thought I was finally drifting off and had imagined it. Then it came again, tap, 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 clear and deliberate. I froze. My bedroom window faces the outside of the building. There's no fire escape, no ledge, nothing. Just a straight drop to the concrete below. It's physically impossible for someone to be out there. The tapping came again, louder this time. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Sweat ran down my back, but now it wasn't from the heat. I lay there perfectly still, staring at the ceiling, telling myself I was hearing things. The fan must be making the curtain hit the glass. That had to be it. Then I heard a sound like fingernails dragging across the window pane. I sat up in bed. The curtain was still moving slightly in the breeze. Behind it I could see a dark shape. This isn't real, I whispered to myself. This can't be real. The shape moved. Through the thin fabric of the curtain, I could make out the outline of a face pressed against the glass. My body went cold. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The face stayed there, motionless, a dark oval against the lighter background of the night sky. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone on the nightstand. I knocked it onto the floor. When I leaned down to grab it, I heard a sound like lips pressing against glass, followed by a quiet laugh. I snatched up the phone and scrambled backward until my back hit the wall. My fingers were shaking so badly I could barely dial 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone at my window, I said, my voice barely a whisper. 3rd floor. It's impossible, but there's someone there. What's your address, sir? I gave it to them, still staring at the curtain. The face hadn't moved. Units are on their way. Are you in a safe location? I'm in my bedroom. I can see them through the curtain. They're just standing there, watching. Can you get to another room without passing the window? Yes. Yes, I think so. Please do that now, sir. Stay on the line with me. I slid off the bed on the far side from the window. My legs felt weak. As I moved toward the door, the tapping started again. Tap, tap, tap. I ran. In the living room, I closed and locked the door behind me. I could hear my neighbors upstairs moving around. The building's old and sound carries. Normal, everyday sounds. While outside my window, something impossible was happening. Sir, are you in a different room now? Yes, I'm in the living room. Officers are 2 minutes out. Can you see or hear anything from where you are? I listened. Nothing but the sound of my own breathing and the upstairs neighbors. No, I closed the bedroom door. Stay where you are. Officers will be there very soon. They arrived 3 minutes later. I buzzed them in with shaking hands and waited by my apartment door. When they knocked, I nearly jumped out of my skin. 2 officers entered, their hands on their weapons. I pointed them toward the bedroom. They went in with flashlights drawn. I stayed in the living room, heart pounding. After 5 minutes, they came back out. There's no one there, sir. the taller officer said. We checked the window, the walls below it, the ground. Nothing. But I saw someone, I insisted. There was a face. I heard knocking. They exchanged a look I knew well, the "this guy's crazy" look. Sir, you're on the 3rd floor, the shorter officer said. There's no way anyone could be at that window. No ledge, no handholds, nothing. We checked thoroughly. I know what I saw, I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. They took my statement, told me to call again if I saw anything suspicious, and left. I stood in my living room, listening to their footsteps fade down the stairs. I didn't go back to my bedroom that night. I sat on the couch with all the lights on, jumping at every sound until the sun came up. The next day, I went to work exhausted. My coworkers noticed. Katie from accounting asked if I was coming down with something. I told her I hadn't slept well because of the heat. I didn't mention what had happened. I knew how it would sound. I spent my lunch break researching. I looked up news stories about my building, hoping to find something about previous break-ins or strange occurrences. Nothing. I Googled "face-in window 3rd floor" and similar phrases, just horror stories and urban legends. By the time I left work, I had almost convinced myself it had been a dream or hallucination brought on by the heat and lack of sleep. I stopped at the hardware store and bought new locks for my windows anyway. The clerk recommended the kind that prevent them from opening more than a few inches. I bought those too. That night I closed all the windows despite the heat. I installed the new locks, checked them 3 times, and took a sleeping pill. I lay down in bed at 11:30, watching the red numbers on my digital clock slowly change. 1:58 a.m. Tap, tap, tap. My entire body went rigid. The sound came again, exactly like the night before. This time I turned my head toward the window immediately. The face was already there, pressed against the glass. In the darkness, I could make out features I hadn't seen before. Pale skin, wide eyes, a mouth stretched into a smile that was too big, too wide for a human face. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 again, fingers slipping on the screen. There's someone at my window again, I said as soon as the operator answered. 3rd floor, 1242 Oak Street, apartment 3B. Please hurry. Sir, remain calm. Officers are on their way. This time I didn't look away from the window. The face stayed there, staring, smiling. As I watched, it pressed harder against the glass. The window creaked. The glass. I whispered into the phone. Oh God, the window's starting to... The face pulled back slightly, then slammed forward. The whole window shuddered in its frame. I ran from the room. Behind me, I heard that same quiet laugh from the night before. The police arrived faster this time. Same result. No sign of anyone, nothing disturbed, no marks on the glass. One officer suggested I might be experiencing stress-induced hallucinations and recommended I see a doctor. The other one gave me a card for a security company that installs cameras. I called in sick to work the next day and spent the morning installing security cameras. One pointing at my bedroom window from the inside, one in the living room, one in the hallway. They all connected to an app on my phone. I sat and watched the feeds all day, jumping at every shadow. That night, I set up my laptop in the living room to record the bedroom window. I wasn't going to sleep in there again. I took another sleeping pill and lay down on the couch, phone in hand with the security camera feeds running. 2 a.m. Tap, tap, tap. I stared at my phone. The bedroom camera showed an empty window, but I could hear the tapping, clear as day. I switched to the camera's night vision mode. Still nothing. The tapping got louder. With shaking hands, I started recording on my phone. I got up and walked to the bedroom door, pointing the camera at the window. The face was there. I could see it with my own eyes pressed against the glass, grinning, but on my phone screen, nothing. Just an empty window. I backed away, still recording. The face followed my movement. The smile got wider. Then it spoke. Let me in. The voice was wrong. It sounded like multiple voices layered on top of each other, some high, some low, all slightly out of sync. I dropped my phone and ran. Out of the apartment, down the stairs, into the street. I didn't stop running until I reached the 24-hour diner 6 blocks away. I sat there until sunrise, drinking coffee with trembling hands. The waiter asked if I was okay. I must have looked terrible. No shoes, wearing the t-shirt and sweatpants I'd been sleeping in covered in cold sweat. When I checked my phone, the video was corrupted, just static. I went to work because I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't focus on anything. My boss sent me home at lunch, telling me I looked sick and should get some rest. I didn't go home. I checked into a hotel instead. Called a locksmith and had all my locks changed. Called the security company and upgraded to their premium package with 24/7 monitoring. That night, in my hotel room on the first floor, I finally slept. No tapping, no face, just blessed silence. The next day, I went back to my apartment. Everything looked normal. The security company had installed their sensors and cameras. The new locks were solid. I felt safer. That night, I slept on the couch again. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a security alert. Motion detected at bedroom window. I pulled up the camera feed. Nothing there. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't look, didn't move, just sat there, frozen, listening. "Let me in," the voices said. "You can't keep me out forever." The tapping continued until sunrise. This has been my life for the past 3 weeks. Every night at 2 a.m. it comes. Sometimes I stay at hotels, sometimes at friends' houses, making excuses about my air conditioning or renovations. But I can't do that forever. Last night I stayed at home, set up cameras from 3 different companies, set up my phone to record, set up my laptop, turned on every light in the apartment. 2 a.m. Tap, tap, tap. This time I walked straight to the window. The face was there, grinning its impossible grin. "What do you want?" I asked. The smile got wider, wider than any human mouth could go. The teeth were wrong, too many, too sharp. "To come in," it said in its many voices. "You'll let me in eventually. Everyone does." "What happens then?" It pressed closer to the glass. Its eyes were solid black. "You'll see. I'm in another hotel now, different city, doesn't matter. I know it will find me tonight. At 2 a.m. there will be a tapping at my window. I've started searching missing persons databases, looking for other stories like mine. I've found some. Always third-floor apartments, always in summer, always at 2 a.m. None of the stories have endings. It's 1:55 a.m. now. I can feel it getting closer. The air is getting heavier, like it did that first night. My phone camera is running, even though I know it won't show anything. I've pushed the dresser in front of the window. Put chairs on top of it, it won't matter. 1:58 a.m. The air conditioning just stopped. 1:59 a.m. I can see my breath. 2 a.m. Tap, tap.